Should be live. Here we go. Testing, testing. Audio check is good. Howdy, howdy. Welcome, welcome. Should be live. Just getting everything set up. Yes, lots of people disagree with this. In fact, half of the Christians in the United States disagree with it. Not a new topic, just one I don't do often. Oh yeah, I should clean my glasses. That's a good idea. Morning, afternoon, wherever you might be. Yeah, of course we cause climate change, but you'd be surprised if you thought that, or you'd be wrong if you thought that everybody agreed. What state am I moving to? I'm moving to Arizona. Grimlock with the $5. Oh, I didn't set up my, oops. Super chat thing isn't working yet. I don't think. Oh no, I guess it is working. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, okay, so we're live. We should be good to go. Remember to tell your friends, like the live, send things over, and yeah, we'll get this started. Demonstrably false, the climate changes periodically. Ah, does it? When you're applying for jobs, can you apply both as a relativist and a differential geometry? That's what I've been doing, actually. On the physics side, I tell them, oh, I do black holes and cosmology and quantum gravity. And on the mathematics side, I say I do differential geometry with applications to gravity. It's a good cheat code. Gravity. Oh, oops. My headphones are not. One moment.
Yeah, let me grab me mine.
Sorry, my Bluetooth headphones are not plugged in yet. Can you say something?
Yep, 1 2 1 2.
Weird, it's not playing through my... One sec. Let me see if I can fix my headphones. Sorry, it's coming out of my computer screen for some reason. All right, give me some audio.
1 2 1 2.
I know you can't hear the guest either.
The urine slow. Hello?
I can hear you now.
Great, I can hear you.
It should... I think we're good. Yeah, okay, we're good. What do you think? Do you think that climate change is real?
Yeah, actually, so how you... I guess I can kind of feel that the weather's been getting kind of worse, but how can you be sure that the climate change is real and like caused by us humans when you don't even know how the trees work, right? I'm the guy from
Oh, did you ever end up doing the calculation?
Thursday. Yep.
Did you ever? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so,
I did.
Yeah, okay. So can you show your work?
Yep. So
okay, please go ahead and share your screen.
There's a couple of... Oh no, I can't do that. I don't think I can do that though.
Oh, why not?
I don't know how to.
I can invite you if you want. So that you can share your work, because that'd be really good.
Okay.
Oh no, you can't. You don't have enough followers.
I can't do it on my laptop.
Yeah, it says you don't have enough
there's no way.
followers.
I can just there's like a couple of real simple formulas. I think I can like recite them or some shit.
Yeah, okay.
So like one of them is like the basic one. I think we learned that in school, where this pressure thing equals to this little p by g by h, right? Where the h is like the height, right? And the big P is the pressure, and the little p is the density of water, right? And the G is, the 9.8, right? So by that formula, if we plug in all the numbers and I Google those numbers, we get like 10 meters.
But we
something.
hold on. To be
like,
clear, we knew that it's not just a tube. We knew that it was capillary action. So did you do the capillary action calculation?
Yep. Yeah. Let me get to that. So it's 10 meters. If we plug in all of that, right? And I'm doing metric because like
that's fine. You can use metric. I know I'm familiar with metric.
Thing is we're given in that.
I'm fine. You're
and
fine with
there's metric. Yeah, great. So there's also the Wikipedia article for capillary action.
Yep.
And there's this thing called Jurin's law.
Sure.
And it's a bit like complicated. There's like this 2y cos 0.
That's not a y. That's
with
a gamma.
Like dangling dash.
So
whatever.
Yeah. So
there's like a simpler version.
Why not just use this version?
Yeah, there's a
simpler
very easy
version. Why not just use this version? It's
1.48.
Why not just use this version? It's very easy.
Which version?
The Jurin's law? Why not just use that?
Yeah, the Jurin's law. Yeah. Okay. So the page gives the simple conversion where it's like 1.48 multiplied by 10 to the minus fifth, okay, divided by r. Yeah, and where r is the radius of the tube. 70 millimeters. Yeah. So that gives 70 millimeters for
it did the math for you. Did you read the next sentence?
Next
on the
sentence
Wikipedia
where?
page. On the Wikipedia page that you're quoting. Did you read the next sentence?
Yep.
Okay, so what does it say?
Sentence? I mean, I read the
what does the next sentence say? Here, I'll show you. I'll share it for you. The next sentence.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm looking at.
It's the next paragraph. Capillary action is used by many plants to bring water up from the soil. For tall trees, larger than 10 meters, other processes like osmotic pressure and negative pressures are also important. And then it gives you a citation that you can go read.
Funnily enough, that sentence does not show up for me. And
I don't believe you. I'm sorry. It's literally where you're looking at it right now.
Yeah, I'm looking. It's like height of the meniscus. No.
Are you on English language Wikipedia?
What's like the name of the Wikipedia article? So because it's a bit different from.
Are you on English language Wikipedia?
You're in the Jurin's law. No, I'm on the English language for capillary action.
Okay, well, all you have to do is just click on Jurin's law and it'll tell you, and then it'll give you a source, and you can go click on the source.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, give me a second. Yeah.
Oh no, the source is dead.
We'll
go find it on archive. Don't worry.
It says this negative pressure thing, which I don't think even is real. Is negative pressure?
Wait, so how can you say it's not real if you don't know what it is?
Well, the pressure is the force by like surface, no?
Negative pressure is a relative statement, by the way.
So like relative to what? We have the atmospheric pressure of.
To be clear, can you admit that you're pascals. To be clear, can you admit that you think that it doesn't exist when you don't know what it is?
I know what pressure is.
Okay, but you don't know what negative pressure is, right?
I know what negative means, and I know what pressure means.
Okay. So negative pressure is essentially if regular pressure is pulling or is pushing, then if positive pressure is pushing, then negative pressure is pulling.
And there's a whole. What's the negative pressure then?
It's pulling.
In this case,
the force is pointed in the opposite direction.
Okay, but it's like when you do suction with the fucking piston, no?
It's sort of like that. But you can also have like negative pressure forming as a result of like mechanical action, right? But
Yeah,
like,
but there's
in
no
fact,
mechanical.
yeah, wait, hold on. A, how do you know? B, we have osmotic pressure. C, there's a Wikipedia article on this. You can just go read it. Negative absolute pressures are possible. They are effectively tension, and both bulk solids and bulk liquids can be put under negative absolute pressure by pulling on them.
But what's pulling on the trees?
Go read
Isn't
about
it like
it.
some
This
divine
is well
force?
studied. Go read about it. Rather than just being incredulous, just go read. There's links and there's sources everywhere.
Okay, now that you mentioned pooling, I guess it's something akin to what like Pastor Jeff described the other day, where
Pastor Jeff?
we have this.
Who's Pastor Jeff?
Yeah,
And by the
yeah.
way, here's an article on this if you'd like to read it. Well, you'd have to get access, but it's fairly easy to get access. Just I won't tell you where, but transporting water to the tops of trees is super well studied. The physics that underlies water transport through plants is not exotic. Rather, the application of that physics in the microfluidic wood matrix results in transport regimes operating far outside our day-to-day experience. Just read. All you have to do is read, bro.
Just go. Why won't you tell me where to read it then?
I've told you 3 places now. Here's one article that you can
No,
read.
yeah, but no, you just said I won't tell you where to get it.
I just showed you an article.
You just said that.
Oh no, that's
Yeah,
because that's because it's behind a paywall. If you want to know where to get it, all you have to do is take this DOI number. See how there's a DOI that I just highlighted there, and then go to somewhere.
Yeah,
go to a secret place called Sci-Hub.
Oh, is it like the hub?
No, it's a repository of scientific articles.
Okay.
Here's a paper.
Right. Okay.
But literally, just Google how does water get to the top of trees. There's so like this, like you're doing the bare. In fact, you know what? This is like, come back when you've done some reading, okay? Is it because it's so bad faith that like he's making me do his research for him. Like if he spent a week doing a quote unquote calculation when he could have just Googled the answer. All right, let's talk to Fuzzy D.
Yo.
Fuzzy D, how's it
You
going?
hear me right?
Yeah, I can.
We caused climate change?
Yeah, we as in humanity.
Oh, in humanity. So it's like more general, like everyone. Like I was about to talk about societal and capitalism caused climate, not we the people. So not we, I caused it. Specifically me.
How dare? Okay, so we just have to throw you into a volcano and then it'll be solved, right?
Yes, sacrifice me.
All right.
If you
to the volcano
I also
gods.
thought the YouTube viewer count was your heart rate. I was like, dude, relax. You don't have to throw me in a volcano.
It's not my heart rate.
It looks like a heart rate.
I mean, it's the YouTube icon.
Monitor.
So
yeah, it's the YouTube icon. It's like red red number between 100 and something.
I get. Well, okay. If we're lucky, it'll get into the 200s or 300s, and then you'll be like, "Oh my god, his heart's going to explode." But I'm going to sacrifice you to a volcano. In which case, toodaloo.
Bye bye.
Oh, come on. Okay, and he's gone. Yeah, my computer's running real slow. But I know why. It's because, I have stuff open. Actually, let's check the task manager. What actually is eating up my browser? Do you think the Earth can repair itself from what we're doing? Yeah, but we just might not have a good time about it. Y'all have fun believing anything Big Brother tells you? If by Big Brother you mean like the nerds who work at like universities and get paid $60K a year, yeah, I'll believe them because they don't really have an incentive to lie. You happen to have a volcano layer, Cameron? That's crazy. I wish I had a volcano layer. I don't think we caused climate change, but speeding it up maybe. I mean, you'd be wrong. Like, I mean, we did cause it. What will determine the point of no return? I mean, we might already be there. Like, it's really hard to say. It depends on what you mean by the point of no return. Like, we are already guaranteed a 1.5 degree increase. I think we've actually already seen a 1.5 degree increase, right? There's no way that we caused reputable harm in 200 years. You'd be surprised. Earth has changed countless times, you're right, but never this fast. I believe the people that have devoted their lives to the study of climate. Is that Big Brother? Yeah, exactly. That's like, who else are you going to believe about the climate? Like, Joe Rogan? Oh yeah, we should absolutely just put some flex tape on like the coal power plants and we'll be good. Flash with the $10. I'm now forever going to wonder who is Pastor Dave. Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of curious too. I'm kind of curious who Pastor Dave is. I'm not going to lie. Like, kind of curious. Yeah, you can. You can literally trace it to industrialization. That's exactly right. Global cooling? The Earth isn't cooling. Why aren't these people joining the guest box? Because they're cowards. This is what cowards do. Cowards who can't defend their views just scream from the comments. It's the end of May almost, and I'm still heating my house. Such a hoax. So this is the meme of, if global warming is real, why is it cold outside? Like, are we really doing the meme? Like, if we're really doing the meme, I guess live your greatest life. But like, climate change and the weather are not the same thing.
Yep.
Frick Bobby, how's it going?
What up, brother?
Not a
Doing
whole
good.
lot. Do you think that climate change is real and that we caused it?
Yes, and then no.
All right. Why do you think that we didn't cause it?
Because the Earth has been around for like thousands of years. There's no way that in 200
Wait, you got to be
years-
trolling me, right?
What?
The Earth has been around for thousands of years?
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's true, but it's also been around for a lot longer than that, right?
I mean, some people say that, some people don't.
Do you think the Earth is 6,000 years old?
No.
Okay. How old do you think the Earth
It's
is?
probably like closer to 1 million.
Where'd you get that number?
I mean, how old is it? Huh?
4.5 billion years old.
If you're talking about like, yeah, the Earth being like a speck on a rock, but like what it looks like today, a couple 100,000 years.
I don't know what you mean by what it looks like today. It looks like a big rock, and it's 4.5 billion years old.
Okay, then that even more proves my point. Then
Sure.
the
So what's your point?
4 billion years. There's no way that in 200 years, this like small population of people that didn't cross the billion threshold until like the 1700s was able to irreparably change the planet to where it's going to be a desert all over the place and there's waters are rising. There's no way.
Well, it's not going to be a desert everywhere, but why do you think that it's impossible for humans who have significantly changed the surface of the Earth? Why is it so surprising that we could impact its climate and significantly do so?
Because it's only 200 years. Like we haven't
So?
utilized that much stuff either. Like
How-
all the stuff
So-
that is in all the stuff that we've used, right? It's
Mhm.
not like we ever added anything to the world. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we added stuff to the
Everything here.
atmosphere, right? We took stuff that was in the ground and we added it to the atmosphere.
That stuff was gonna be added to the atmosphere anyways, though.
When?
Eventually.
It was just like rocks. It was basically just rocks. When was it going to be added to the atmosphere?
You're talking about oil, right?
I'm talking about coal and oil, yeah.
Okay. That's
So,
fair.
but
Coal's
I mean,
fair.
like the oil is inside rocks. So when would it have been added to the atmosphere?
I mean, there's natural like earthquakes and stuff that pop
But
oil.
why
open all the
why would
time.
oil? So the way that the CO2 gets from the ground into the atmosphere is by burning it, right? What
Yeah, you don't think that
process
an
would have
earthquake
caused the
would create
burning of?
sparks that
No,
burn?
earthquakes don't cause sparks. It's not really a thing. They're like natural coal fires or natural oil fires are not a thing. There are like 2 natural gas fires in the world, maybe 3, but they're like little tiny things.
Okay.
So like, I mean, like, you do agree that we add carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, right?
Yeah, but I don't think it's that significant where it's gonna be like irreparable harm. You know what I'm saying?
How much carbon dioxide do you think that we've added to the atmosphere?
I don't know the exact number. It's not like it's.
Do you
I'm
think
sure it's a lot.
do you think we've increased it by 1%, 10%, 100%, 1,000%? What would you say?
Probably like 120% of what it was.
So you're saying that. So that's about right. It's at like 440 parts per million or so, almost 450 if I remember correctly. And prior to the Industrial Revolution, it was like 220 or something like that. So my question is, if we doubled the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, why would you think that wouldn't have a big effect?
I mean, I don't think that it's not a big effect. I think that it's just not going to be like crazy the way that people say.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
doubled it.
Yeah, I don't think that the planet's going to go into like catastrophic failure or something.
The planet will be
know?
fine. We will not. It's
Hell,
not the planet
people are
that
saying
we're
like it's going to be like 5 degrees hotter. It's like,
well, yeah, I mean, maybe 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, that's like, that's the whole planet, right? That's not just like 5 degrees hotter outside, right?
Yeah.
So
actually, explain to me the difference, because I hear the same thing when you say.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah.
If it's 5 degrees hotter everywhere, that means that Antarctica is 5 degrees hotter, which means that much more ice. Because like if you take an ice cube from 30 degrees Fahrenheit to 35 degrees Fahrenheit, that ice cube becomes liquid water, right?
Yeah.
So that means significant amounts of ice that melts, which means significant amounts of sea level rise. Also, when water gets warmer, even just a few degrees warmer, it expands by like 1 or 2%. In the same way that when you heat up anything, it expands, right?
Mm.
But there's a lot of water in the ocean. So if you heat up the ocean by a few degrees, the oceans will rise very, very high, like several feet.
Okay.
And that means more floods. That means more tidal catastrophes. That means more intense hurricanes.
I didn't think about it that way.
Like
I was thinking about it just like, the temperature outside. I'm like, yeah, it might harm the Brits because they can't handle 20 degrees Celsius, but...
That's true, by the way. We can agree on that. The Brits are hilarious.
Yeah, I'm sitting in southern Alabama here, and it's like 90 degrees outside in here. The British are having a heat wave. It's 26 degrees Celsius outside.
Yeah, it's like literally 75 degrees, and they're freaking out.
Yeah.
I was in London like a few weeks ago, and when we landed, it was like 78 degrees outside, and I saw a TikTok, and it was like, we are worried about a heat wave in the coming few days. And I'm like, bro, like it's... But anyway, this is all to say, it's not just the temperature. The temperature is a measure of energy, right? And the more energy that is in the oceans, that's in the air, that just means that extreme weather events will get more extreme because there's more energy driving them, right? And like, I mean, think of Florida, right? Florida is like at least the heavily populated parts of Florida, like 1 or 2 feet above sea level, right? And if the sea level rises by 1 or 2 feet, that place, it's underwater.
Yeah, you're right. I live in Mobile, Alabama, so dang, like Fairhope would be underwater. Dang.
And I mean, you think that are you old enough to remember Katrina?
I am.
Yeah, so Katrina is below, New Orleans is below sea level, right?
Yeah.
And it has walls that's keeping the water back.
Yeah.
If the sea level rises and the water gets over the walls, it's really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
This is all to say, pretty significant effects, even if you only think it's like, I agree, a few degrees isn't a big deal. Like, I'm from Arizona, right? Like I can handle 120 degrees, it's fine. But that's not the only thing that's happening.
Yeah. That's fair. See, I guess that's the problem with the reporting on it, is that they don't explain it like that. and so you see reports about like, oh, temperature's gonna go up, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
I absolutely agree that is roughly just bad reporting. In some sense, that's kind of why the name changed from like global warming to climate change, because it's not just about the world getting warmer. It's about the world's climate changing, which is, broader.
Yeah. Dang, I didn't think about it that way. All right,
Fair
I
enough,
guess I
man.
don't disagree with you anymore.
Sounds good,
Thank
Bobby.
you for educating me a little bit.
Have
You're
a
a
good
really
one, bud.
smart guy, by the way.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate you. All right, I'm
Have
gonna
a good
let
one, man.
some other idiot get up here. Bye.
All right, take care. You can handle 48 degrees Celsius. Look, so in Phoenix is very, very dry. It's a dry heat. So like, you know how when you open like the oven and like the hot air wafts out into your face? It's like feeling that, but over your whole body the whole time that you're outside. Which, I mean, like, we can make do. We get by. All right, we have a guest on from YouTube, so let's bring him up. Ben, how's it going? Can you hear me all right? Benjamin. Benjamino. Benjamuni. I don't know why, but I can't hear. Oh, actually, maybe I can't hear you. Yeah, no, that's my fault. I think, go ahead and talk. Oh yeah, your mic is not connecting.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Great. Yeah. How's it going?
All right. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Do you think that we cause climate change?
So my opinions on this are broad. I work in commercial HVAC, so I do
Okay.
refrigeration, air conditioning, and my understanding of how climate works is a little interesting compared to most people, just because of what I do.
Sure.
So you're right that humans obviously had a hand in this, but I've been hearing a lot of information that, there's natural cycles taking place, and we've pretty much started a fire that can't be put out at this point.
Well, so, I mean, it is true that there are natural cycles of heating and cooling of the Earth, but this isn't one of them. Now, it might be the case. It might be the case that we have forced it into like a heating part, but then that means it's our fault, right?
Yeah, and one thing I want to mention is, like, because of what I'm saying is, we have a thing in this industry called superheat. It's the measurement of the refrigerant at its boiling point, and that is affected by pretty much everything happening, the mechanical heat of the compressor, everything going on. And this doesn't just apply to air conditioning. This is your walk-in coolers for restaurants. This is your mini splits in small apartments, your window units in, your garage. This is everything that has a heat pump in it. We're pretty much pumping out additional heat. So we're removing heat from the building. It goes through its cycle and goes to the condenser and gets pumped out as a superheated source of energy. And if you take all of that and combine it with everything else we got going on, you could see that we are absolutely artificially warming the climate versus just it being CO2 from vehicles, because it's not just the CO2 from vehicles. That's a byproduct of what happens with the engines, but we're pretty much sucking in our oxygen through all these naturally aspirated engines, and what we get is carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide on the back end. But people fail to understand that in that process we're consuming oxygen, and that's gone. The only way it can be replenished is through plants and the natural cycles. But you take everything going on, then yes, we absolutely are affecting the climate change that's taking place.
So, as far as I'm aware, and I'm checking right now, as far as I'm aware, the oxygen level in the Earth, in the atmosphere, has been basically the same for like the last, I don't know, 10 million years. Like, we're not changing the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. Like, I'm looking up charts right now and I'm not seeing any. So like we're not like getting rid of the oxygen. That's not, like, it is really the CO2 that is like the actual cause. of the climate
Yeah.
change.
There's also
I'm-
another opinion, just real quick, is if you ever heard about the argument of natural cataclysms that occur every 12 to 14,000 years. That's a big thing that's being looked at right now. It has to do with our magnetic fields weakening. And
what
this is
natural
allowing
cataclysm
a
happened
lot
12,000 years ago?
well, it's guys like Graham Hancock.
You
that
should not
discussed
take
it.
Graham Hancock seriously, by the way.
Well, it's
He's
and I
not. He's
don't-
not.
I'm just
he's,
saying
he's not taken seriously in his own field, so I wouldn't take him seriously if I were you.
well, it's well, there's a few other people, and like I don't know his last name, but Ben with Suspicious Observers is monitoring this with the magnetic fields, and that they believe a reversal is taking place. So it seems like there's a lot of opinions on what's actually happening.
Well, yeah. So how many of these are like PhD holding climatologists? Do you know?
Well, I understand that when you guys just talked about how old the Earth is, and so we can look back on core samples and see levels of this, and what's happened as far as we can measure. But I don't think we're ever going to really understand what's happening. I think we
Why
have
do you
an
think
idea
that we
and have
can't
our
understand
opinion,
what's happening? What do you think
just
scientists
because
do?
of how it's how complex the cycles on our Earth are, especially the feedback loops that are starting to take
the
place.
cycles on the Earth are not really all that complex. It's the minutia. It's the minutia of the feedback loops that that we can cause that are complicated. But just to be clear, Suspicious Observers has a degree in economics and he's a former lawyer. He doesn't have any science training. I wouldn't trust him either.
Yeah, I was just giving the things that I've heard. The obviously it could be speculation, but just still, it's just throwing that out there that there are a lot of other opinions than just the one.
Right. But
That it's
opinions. Everybody has an opinion, right? Opinions are worth as much as the toilet paper that you can write them on.
yeah, it's just
it's
fascinating.
data. It's data driven models that are worthwhile, right?
Yeah, and well, either way, I mean, just another thing I wanted to say just too is that I believe we truly are screwed just with the feedback loops. That's whatever the reason is that is causing this. You're right that the feedback loops are measurable, and that's where most of our data is. And it's not looking good, especially with the methane and the permafrost releasing.
Yep, those.
And
Yeah, the methane clathrates is a real thing. That's a real feedback loop that we are in danger of pushing past. Yep.
Yeah, and we're seeing the carbon landing on the ice. It's been happening for a while. It's created a lot of black carbon deposits on the ice, which allow puddles to form and absorb even more heat. And the ice is melting from the bottom, from below. And that was like a new revelation that they kind of came up with when they saw that the water was actually melting from underneath. And that means our currents in the oceans are actually changing because of the salt water and the fresh water not mixing.
All of this is because we decided to pump out, billions of tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere.
Can I ask you if you believe if oil is from plant matter and dinosaurs from millions of years ago? Or
It's not from dinosaurs. It's primarily from algae.
Okay. Yeah, and it's also like 35,000 feet deep sometimes, and a lot of people think that it's primarily from dinosaurs or it's fossil fuels. And they
are fossil fuels. That's the name, but they're not from fossils. The name fossil in fossil fuels was coined in the 1700s before we even knew dinosaurs existed. Fossil just means from the rock.
Have you ever considered the fact that oil was in place or part of our biochemistry in the earth to help tectonic plates or to help everything down there kind of move around, and kind of like you would have engine and oil to help with stuff like that? You ever considered that idea?
Why would I consider that idea?
Just a lot of people assume that oil is specifically from like biological matter, and
it is from biological. There's tons of proof. There's so much evidence that like it comes from algae, because you can just go look at the layers where these for example, we can take a look at coal, for example. We know exactly what coal is. Coal is long dead carboniferous trees that didn't decay because this was in the very early evolutionary stages of trees that couldn't be broken down by bacteria because the bacteria hadn't evolved to digest lignin yet. So we know exactly what causes coal. And then similar ideas. It's more complicated for oil because it's actually algae and microorganisms themselves that are decaying. But it's literally it's very well understood.
I just wondered
especially
if
for
the
long
oil
chain
was also
petroleum.
helping keep the planet at a stable. I just also wonder if the oil was helping keep the planet at a stable temperature, and the fact that we've sucked it out and burned it, that now we have these empty voids down there, and that's just causing a lot of heat to get trapped and cause new cycles, especially with like our tectonic plates and the magma channels that flow naturally. I wonder if the oil did have something to do with that, and that's another feedback loop that no one's really
So the
kinda looked
oil
at or
is not
thought
like
about.
literally pools of oil. It's like it's like absorbed in the rocks. So it's not like literally like oil between the tectonic plates. That's just not where the oil is, right?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what layer. Maybe in the deeper realms, it could be trapped in the rock, but there still are probably basins of it, cavities
So
of it.
there are places where there are cavities or chambers of like petroleum, but those are very, very shallow.
Okay. Well, I'm just, when you get the a lot of it, we want to get the scientific facts and everything has to be proven scientifically, but still a lot of that gets started by kind of thinking outside the box and just kind of wondering, and experimenting with ideas. So something I've always thought about, that the oil maybe have a bigger, may have been here serving a separate purpose, and we're kind of like destroying that purpose by burning it.
Well, look, man, if that's going to convince people to stop burning petroleum, maybe you should. Well, actually no. I still don't want you to tell more people that because it's not based on anything. But it incentivizes you to not burn petroleum, so at least that's good.
Yeah, well, if aliens ever are true and they come down here, I feel like maybe the first thing they're going to ask us is how we're powering all these cars. And then we're going to tell them, oh, we sucked the oil out and started burning it. And they're going to be, like, oh, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, we sucked the oil out and we started burning it. And they're like, you sucked out what? The oil? Not, you sucked out the oil? That's the only thing they were coming back for. And they find out that we actually sucked it out of the ground and started burning it, setting it on fire. Be pretty comical.
I mean, it would be pretty funny. I don't think that's how that would go, though. But look, man, I'm going to let you go because there are other guests that I want to bring up who probably don't think that the climate is changing. So thanks for being here, Ben.
Yep, thanks, bud.
Oh my god, my computer is so slow. It's like painfully slow. Do I have like something going on that's like eating up my... I don't think so. By the way, we got a new... Sorry, one sec. I do have an SSD. Yeah. Rip Steakface, I think you are the first member. Welcome as member number 1, Rip Steakface. I'm getting rid of this computer in like a week anyway, and I'm gonna move, so I'll have a better computer when I move. Or at least I hope I'll have a better computer. I don't have any tabs open. I closed Chrome. It's just being slow. My CPU utilization is like 100%. The other thing is that I can't. My computer can't overclock anymore because the cooling is so bad in my computer because it's so clogged with cat hair that I can't get out. Did I end the Chrome task? Yes, it should be ended. Yeah, there's no Chrome task running. But there is. Yeah, it's really just OBS and TikTok live stream. Like that is really all it is. All right, let's talk to Nathan Roosh.
Hey, how you doing?
Nathan, I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate you having me on. I've listened to you quite a bit. I've watched a lot of your videos, and oh my goodness, I love listening to you, even on things that we don't always agree on.
Well, okay, let's talk about that. Do you think that we cause climate change?
Do I think we cause climate change? I think we've accelerated natural climate change.
On what grounds?
So now this comes from very limited research. So I'm going to stipulate that, and you can very probably easily just disprove me, and I will accept that more so than not. But last time that I had done any research on it, I looked at, someone had told me that volcanic eruptions can produce more CO2 than 5 years worth of cars of all of Europe. and I think that had to do with the eruption that occurred back in 2010 in Europe. And if that's the case, right? That's if it's producing as much as we produce in 5 years, then yeah, we're adding to that most definitely. We're doubling that time span, right? In a 5-year period. But I think it just goes to show that, in my opinion, that we are accelerating what's already naturally going to happen. And so from my standpoint, that's not necessarily a bad thing. We don't know what's to come next with it, right?
So before we get into whether or not it's a bad thing,
Yeah.
I do just have
Yeah.
to correct you on the volcano thing. So
Please.
a single volcanic eruption can emit a lot of CO2 for a few hours.
Mhm.
And during that few hours, it will emit more CO2 than like the entirety of Europe during the same few hours. But on average, each year, humans
Yeah.
emit about at least 60 times more CO2 than volcanoes do. So like, yes, a single volcano, while it's erupting, is emitting a lot of CO2. But but because it's not erupting for like the entire year, it just
Right.
doesn't emit that much compared to the amount that humans do.
Yeah, see, and again, this is again, back 2010, so I'm pulling back from a memory that's really far back. So I had thought that I had read that it was like one eruption was equivalent to like 5 years worth of driving, right? And
So-
I could be wrong, and I'm good with that.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at something right now.
Yeah.
So in a 2011 peer-reviewed paper, U.S. Geologic Survey scientist Terry Gerlach summarized 5 previous estimates of global volcanic carbon dioxide emission rates that had been published between 1991 and 1998. Those estimates incorporated studies reaching back to the 1970s, and they were based on a wide variety of measurements, such as direct sampling and satellite remote sensing. The global estimates fell within a range of 0.3 plus or minus 0.15 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide per year, implying that human carbon dioxide emissions were more than 90 times greater than global volcanic carbon dioxide emissions.
We're only 90 times increasing the rate at which it does it. No, I get it. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. No, I get it. Like I said, a long time ago, younger me research and my memory of it was different, right? I do believe that, electric cars aren't the answer because we're utilizing fossil fuels to generate the electricity for those those vehicles. But ultimately, like the question that you asked, right? I do believe that we're accelerating it. I believe that the Earth is a closed system, and that no matter what you put into it, it will self-correct in its own way, because it is a closed system. And and that could be from a young adolescent mind being taught, it was a closed system, back with the rain, they teach you back in high school, right? The rain system, right? It rains, it goes into water, it evaporates, It rains again, right? Everything's a closed system, right? So maybe that's just me.
But
kind of.
So do you
morphing
think
that?
that
Yeah.
do you think that Venus is a closed system?
I don't know. I know it's another planet, but I don't know. I mean, I would assume so. I would assume the answer to that is yes, as long as the atmosphere can hold in its gases and its own material in.
So Venus is as closed a system as Earth is, meaning that
Okay.
it has an atmosphere, it has clouds, and Venus is often regarded as like Earth's twin. The difference between the Earth and Venus, though, is that Venus is 900 degrees. And it's not because it's so much closer to the sun. It is closer to the sun, but not 900 degrees closer. It's 900
Okay.
degrees, and it hasn't always been that hot, by the way. The reason it's that hot is because it had a runaway greenhouse effect. So some sort of process took place in the past that caused copious amounts of CO2 to be emitted, and that emitted CO2 caused the temperature to rise, which caused more CO2 to be emitted from the same processes. And the end result is that now there's so much CO2 in the atmosphere that it basically traps in all of the heat that it gets from the sun. Because remember, Venus, the Earth, none of these actually are closed systems. It gets every planet gets energy from the sun, so there is energy input. The question is how well do we hold on to that energy? And that's the problem. If we hold on to the energy better, the Earth will get warmer. If we hold on to the energy less well, the Earth will get colder. And so, depending on what's going on in our atmosphere, we will either hold on to the energy well, if we have a ton of CO2, like Venus does, or we will not, if we don't have a ton of CO2. So, all you have to do, if you took all of the carbon, if you took all of the carbon and oxygen, if you took like all of the carbon in the form of coal and petroleum and methane and all of that in the Earth, burnt it, and then converted it to CO2, the Earth would very quickly be a hellscape. Because even though like the CO2 isn't leaving the Earth, or we're not getting new CO2, you're moving it into a place where it does more damage. And so like I agree, the CO2, it's not like we're getting new CO2 from outside the Earth, but currently it's not doing anything. It's just sitting in the ground, not even as CO2. It's like the carbon is kind of just holed up in the form of like solid compounds and liquid compounds. If you take that carbon, you put it in the atmosphere, now you have a problem. And whether or not the Earth is a closed system, that kind of change can happen.
And currently, the Earth has no way of actually taking that CO2 and re-solidifying it back into a solid to bring it back down, correct?
It does, but it's really slow. That's what trees do, right?
But trees can't reach into the upper atmospheres, can they? Isn't that where most of that CO2 sits?
The atmosphere is pretty well mixed. And CO2 is pretty heavy, so it actually sits fairly low. It's not like up in the extreme parts of the atmosphere where like helium and hydrogen are.
Okay.
So, I mean, like you can look up the lifespan of like a given CO2 molecule.
Yeah.
And I think it's a few hundred years. So in 1990, they came to the assessment that the lifespan of a given CO2 molecule is somewhere between 50 and 200 years. But I've seen the number be anywhere from 200 to 1,000 years before. But regardless, we're talking decades, decades at a minimum, perhaps thousands of years at a maximum. And so the trouble is that if you have all that carbon up in the, let's say 100 years, just a good middle ground, 100 years of putting it'd be like wearing a blanket for 100 years. You're gonna get hot, and that will cause more domino effects to fall. So we just
need to find a way to utilize what's there. We need a way to break down the carbon.
Well, there are ways. There are technologies called carbon capture technologies, which do a fairly good job. Of course, they take energy, like all things do. But as long as we're powering them with some sort of non-carbon emitting source or some sort of green power source, then
let's use coal to power it.
Yeah, just use coal to power the carbon scrubbers. Yeah, so I mean, like you absolutely can get it out, but that it costs money to do, right? Like you have to build these things. You have to build lots of them. And like you can also like and the other thing is that you have to cut emissions too. It's not enough to just scrub it out of the atmosphere. You have to stop putting it in the atmosphere.
Do you think we're already at the runaway sequence? Do you think we're already there?
So there are different kind of stages, if you will. We are, if I remember correctly, and I can double check this, but we are almost certainly going to pass the 2-degree mark, the 2-degree increase from the early 1800s. So, because we're already at like 1.5 degrees above the early 1800s temperature, we're almost certainly going to hit the 2-degree mark. There's nothing that we can do about that. The 3-degree mark is generally regarded as like catastrophic. And maybe if we did something like ASAP, then we could resolve it. But it looks like we're heading that way. We're not there yet, but it's getting awfully close.
Now that 3-degree mark, that's Celsius, correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's a big swing, right? So when you're talking to someone who thinks in Fahrenheit,
so 3 degrees Celsius is like 5 degrees Fahrenheit, or yeah.
So that's a big heat swing. I enjoy the heat, but not that much.
And the thing is it's not just like you're gonna have warmer summers in like Michigan or something. It's that you're going to have significantly more intense hurricanes, more frequent droughts. you're going to have higher sea levels, you're going to have bigger floods. Like, it's just, there's a lot of knock-on effects that we can't ignore.
So, and that brings, and again, maybe this was just, you know, my brain making leaps and assumptions. But why does, if the higher CO2 levels increases the heat, which generates more things like hurricanes, well, I guess hurricanes bring water up into the atmosphere, not the other way around. I was thinking, why isn't that a corrective measurement, right? Why isn't that bringing things down? But I just realized my question's dumb because I'm bringing water up into the atmosphere, not bringing CO2 down into the water.
Yeah. And also, by the way, CO2, so water does absorb CO2. Like, you know, fizzy drinks are not usually, like sodas are not usually fizzy because of CO2. Usually it's nitrogen, but, or no, it is CO2 for most sodas, but I think for Guinness it's nitrogen. And so water can dissolve, or CO2 can dissolve in water, but that's a bad thing. So the reason why CO2 in soda is so satisfying, it's like sharp, is because CO2 dissolved in water is literally an acid. And so the more CO2 that's in the atmosphere, and the warmer the oceans get, they can absorb more CO2. And that means that the oceans will get more acidic, and that's really bad for animal life, right? Like,
is that just raising the pH, or is that actually like
it's lowering the pH? Acid? It's lowering the pH. I mean, that's what an acid is, right?
Bases are higher, acids are lower. So you're right. Yeah. Sorry. Is it actually forming an acid, or is it just the pH is just changing?
Well, that an acid is just anything with a pH lower than 7, right?
Right.
So if the pH is getting lower, which it is, that means it's becoming more acidic.
And that's because of a mixture, not because of a bond, right? It's not like it's becoming like C2H3O or something like that, right?
So I mean, yeah. So it's a dilute acid.
Okay.
Or rather, it's more acidic. It depends on where you are, how acidic the ocean is. For example, Hawaii's ocean is actually slightly basic, but it is, you know, it is less basic now than it was 25 years ago, for example.
Right, yeah. So it's changing, yeah. But the point of the matter is it's changing.
Yeah. Which is it's just bad for like if you like coral reefs, that's one surefire way to kill them. Like, it's just not, like, we're just making the world worse.
Yeah, it makes sense. No, I get it. I never, you know, to be honest, in day-to-day life, I never really thought of it, right? So again, one of the reasons why I love listening to you, and dude, like I said, you're fantastic to listen to. And again, we don't always agree on everything, or some of the methods you've used to talk to some others. But like I said, I've always enjoyed listening to you, and you're always educational. Some of the stuff you put out way beyond my head to reason, and I really do appreciate it. I wanted to thank you for having me on. I'll let you go on to the next person, but I really do thank you and appreciate for the candor.
Yeah, of course. Have a good one, man.
Hey, you do the same. Have a great day, my friend.
Now we have a super chat for 10 Canadian dollars from Garba Gaiman. Critique my metaphor. Humans increase Earth's natural CO2 emissions by about 10%. If you ran your car on gas with 10% higher octane, it might still run for a while, but eventually the engine will blow. Yeah, perhaps that's right. I don't know if the increase in CO2 emissions by 10% is correct. Thank you for the glasses. But yeah, I mean, roughly, the point is if you do, if you're at some sort of equilibrium, and you increase the stuff going in without also increasing the stuff going out, you're gonna slowly overload the reservoir of stuff, and that's the bad thing. Also, Robert, with the $2 super chat, how do we become a member on YouTube? I have no idea. I actually don't know how it works, but there is a button that I could click on my page to enable it, and so I do. So I did. Why would a PhD physicist be the authority on climate change? I'm not. The PhD climatologists are. Fortunately, I know how to read scientific literature. I also love coral reefs, by the way. It's the best way to go scuba diving. Come on, YouTube. Come on, YouTube. YouTube, or TikTok, come on. Climate change is the biggest hoax and money grab on the planet. Fascinating. We should, you should join. Scotty.
Hey.
Scotty. How's it going?
What's up? Pretty good.
Do you think that humans cause climate change?
Yeah. I mean, I think based on at least what it seems like the velocity, I haven't actually measured it myself, but like the velocity of change seems to be something synthetic if you just look at this, the cyclic nature of our climate. I guess my whole thing, and by the way, I don't know, because I asked this, I think I joined your live last Monday, and I was trying to talk about the one-way speed of light, but it wasn't the purpose of your live.
Yep, you missed yesterday. Yesterday was the Ask a Physicist Day.
That's what, yeah, I figured that.
So how about this? So if you still want to ask that question, just DM me, and we can talk about it over DMs.
Okay. I do have a couple thoughts on this. So I and I'm very amateur with my knowledge on biochemistry, but I do appreciate and like biochemistry a lot. And from what it seems, humans, we essentially need like subtropical fruit seem to align with the nutritional profiles we need, and then also like meat, like head to tail sort of game.
And then
and
vegetables
also sort of,
as well.
Well, sort of. I mean, the profiles of fruit and vegetables are actually really similar. It's more
fruit just tends to be much higher in sugar, right?
Yeah. I mean, typically, yeah, it depends on the fruit, but it also like fructose, the sort of the nature of sugars can, or at least the type of sugar has a variety of sort of impacts on our body. But it's mainly sort of the packaging of fats within fruits. So most fruits that are similar to vegetables nutritionally are packaged with like fats rather than non-digestible polysaccharides like fiber, which is more vegetable. Anyways, long story short, it does seem like subtropical environments are best for humans to me. And, I think that many PhDs in biochemistry would agree or disagree or whatever. But the point is, and also I guess on top of that, it does seem like where we evolved, or when we know the Homo sapien, at least our earliest fossil records of Homo sapiens, I think we're around Morocco, like 300,000 years ago. And that, I think at the time, was more of a subtropical climate.
So where are we going with this?
Yeah, so I'll land the plane. The point is that to me, it actually seems like a good thing if we could warm the globe in terms of sort of propagating up the foods that we actually need. And so to me, and also on top of that, it seems like the idea that we want the climate to stay the same, or we want to protect like certain cities and regions from climate change. Obviously, we're still coming out of like an ice age technically. So it's like historically, like over the past 500 million years, like our Earth's pretty cold relative to what it usually is. So it seems like kind of myopic to think that like cities or regions are going to remain static in terms of like climate. So it just doesn't seem like.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyways, really, basically landing the plane, it doesn't necessarily seem like a bad thing, even with, like you were saying, a lot of natural disasters are bolstered by the fact that the Earth would be when the Earth warms. But it just doesn't. If we could have like this dynamic view of living, it doesn't seem like the worst thing.
So just, I mean, like consider the world that we live in today in 2025. Would you say that rising costs of food is generally bad for most people?
Yeah, absolutely. But
climate change is actively causing that. It's not just it might; it is actively causing that with a upward pressure on food of between 1% and 3% per year as a result of increasing desertification, decreasing amounts of rainfall, and generally less hospitable environments for growing the food that we do. Right? It's making like actively food is getting more expensive because of climate change.
Right.
Similarly,
Well,
there are other huge costs. So it's expected that by the year 2030, climate change costs will be about $2.4 trillion every year. I mean, like you might say, oh, well, we don't need to live in a society with money. That's not a big deal. We can just deal. Like, these are real costs to real humans that are currently alive, right?
when you talk about cost,
I'm talking about costs, because this means that economies suffer, right?
Well, I mean, and I don't, if you want to, I don't want to interrupt, but when we talk about cost, all that is just like allocation of resources. So like I'm saying, and also what you were saying about costing the way we grow food tremendously and sort of disrupting our supply chain and food. Totally agree with you, but actually, like I'm saying, eating subtropical fruits, including what you think of as vegetables, sometimes like tomatoes, cucumbers, even corn, all fruits. And they're way more efficient than some of the crops that we actually eat. A lot of the we'll just call them non-subtropical crops are, they're just a cost to the land that we grow them typically in greenhouses or just in very synthetic ways. So yeah, no, I mean, I'm not disagreeing that it comes at a tremendous cost, but that's the point.
So that means it's a bad thing, right? Like, this will hurt
No,
humans.
not necessarily, because
so to be clear, it will hurt humans. Like, by 2030, it's expected that 60% of global working hours lost from heat stress will be the result of rising global temperatures, right?
Well, but like, to go on what you're saying,
that just means that we can't produce as much food, actually,
that's not necessarily true. Well, that based on our current infrastructure and technology.
Yes, and that's the world we live in, right? This is something that's going to be in 5 years. We can't completely reframe the global economy in 5 years.
Well, again, I do think that we will be okay in terms of the next 5 years on food. But
no, it's going to get more expensive, and it's going to cost trillions of dollars, and that's going to be hurting the most underprivileged people, the global South, most harshly, right?
Well,
that's hurting real people.
Right. But when you talk about cost, like you're talking about it, it's like this. It's like if we knew the Earth in 2 years was about to get hit by a meteor that was going to wipe out humanity, but we also knew that we could build a ginormous rocket that could literally house 8 billion people and lift off the planet and go to somewhere else that's habitable, and we know where that is. The point is, like, yes, that comes at a tremendous cost, but reforming your infrastructure and just the system around, I mean, in this case, like growing food and making cities more dynamic and like the idea of living more dynamic, the cost is worth it. And it's obvious. And that's my point also, like, it's myopic to think that the Earth isn't going to warm. Obviously, again, we're coming out of an ice age still. Like, typically the Earth hasn't had polar ice caps.
Like you're saying, yes, if we could completely restructure the global economy and not worry about the people being displaced and not worry about the money and the resources that have to be moved around in a novel way that we don't have the infrastructure for, then it might not be a big deal. And you might be right, but that's not the world we live in. Like, so there's so many negative effects from this. To say, oh, well, maybe we'll be able to grow more subtropical food. It's just not enough. It's not, I mean, to be clear, we will not be able to grow more food. We will be able to grow less food because deserts will be more desertification will be increased, right? The amount of deserts that form as a result of higher temperatures will be increased. That's a fact, right? But I mean, like we could also talk about the number of people who will. We could also talk about the number of people who are going to be displaced, and that means that we will have refugee crises on the order of 1 billion people. Right? Like, where do those people like you think that we had a refugee crisis in the mid 2010s from the Middle East? Like, you think that, I don't know, 10 million, 20 million people is bad? What about 1 billion people that need new homes? Like, where? That's a problem.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And
so how is it good? How is any of this good?
Well, it'd be like it's myopic to think that we don't have to, even without the quote unquote industrial revolution and tremendous production of or synthetic production of CO2 in the atmosphere. Even without that, like we would still have to have the idea, and it would take a lot longer of time
really.
probably. But
well, no. The point is with the natural rate of the cycles that we experience, that the Earth experiences, there would be no there would be no intentional changes required, right? Because it changes so slowly that just that you have 1 millimeter of sea rise,
right.
That the natural behavior of like construction and people moving around and things like that would just equilibrate automatically. We're making it happen so fast that we can't do that automatically without heavily forced solutions.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think what you're kind of implying is that we would continue the rate of change of our own governance, which I think that my argument is this, it would require prioritization. It already needs to require prioritization no matter what. But I don't think it's actually like, if we were to prioritize this and subsidize, obviously, the projected displacement of people, the projected loss of like agricultural land, I don't think that it's out of our wheelhouses. Like, I don't think we're in a state that we couldn't heavily change everything about sort of the system of our current global society.
So to be clear, the claim it seems like the claim that you're making is that, well, it could be a good thing because then we can grow more fruits and vegetables that are good for humans if we completely restructure the way the entire global society works. And I'm telling you, even if that's true, that maybe we could grow more fruits and vegetables that humans are well developed to eat. There's also all of these other negative things that far outweigh the ability to grow better fruits and grow more fruits and vegetables, right? Like we'll have more extreme weather events. We'll have basically destroyed the marine environment of the ocean. We won't have stable drought and wet seasons. Stable droughts and wet seasons for like a big chunk of the earth. Like, it's just
no, I totally agree with that.
So in what sense?
Well, I guess my point is
you may have found one kind of good thing, and then there's like a billion other bad things.
No, but I think what you're missing and maybe I don't even think I stated this, but my desire / assumption with my argument would be that we change everything like right now. We restructure everything.
Even if we did, we like. So, look, I agree. I'd love to live in a luxury automated gay space communism. All about it. Love me some Star Trek. It's not going to happen. We can't even get people to stop driving pickup trucks.
Well, again, I don't even think the automotive thing is like the worst part about it.
I mean, transportation is like 40% of CO2 emissions or something like that.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, like, I don't think, what could we convert to? Like most
green energy production plus electric vehicles is.
But like think about it. Like even producing solar panels is like totally reliant upon CO2. Like the company I use,
I mean, like you can just look at the CO2, what is it, like the CO2 footprint of a solar panel over its lifetime is like basically negligible.
But it's like, okay, but that would be a relative measurement to.
So I can just pull up the numbers for you. So
I'm saying like mining, like let me walk you through it. Like mining the actual materials, the actual construction that goes into, at least like, so like my old company, we used to produce green data centers, and like all of our solar panels were actually using the grid as a battery, which obviously the grid's stabilized by usually, fossil fuels or nuclear power plants. So that's different. But it just seems like even like producing the batteries themselves too are like highly, I think made of rare earth materials. I'm pretty sure
you don't necessarily need. So all of these things are about the modes by which we develop the infrastructure. Right. So like battery infrastructure, like these don't inherently require CO2 emissions. The only reason these things have CO2 emissions is because that's how we generate electricity, right? But like you can use all sorts of other methods to generate electricity to then reinforce and build in a green way more green energy supply, right?
I just like
building
have you
battery,
ever-
like digging cobalt up or digging lithium up out of the ground doesn't inherently produce CO2. It just requires a lot of energy.
but all these machines that are digging it up, like at least now, are obviously fossil fuel powered.
Yeah, they don't have to be.
I get, but like,
but
is
to
that
be clear,
even like
to be
feasible?
clear,
like, are we not at that point? Like, if everything
clear,
runs off batteries and renewables,
solar
it's
panels are over their lifespan, even accounting for the amount of
which is
CO2
only like
that's
20 years.
over their lifespan, even accounting for the amount of CO2 pumped into the atmosphere by the machines that go into building the solar panels, are less than 10% of the CO2 emissions of like gas. And gas is like one of the cleanest burning fuels that we have. Hydro is less than 5%. Nuclear is less than 2%, and wind is less than 1%. Sorry, less than 2% as well. So like,
Well,
there are
technically, solar
tons of
is.
there are tons of ways, like solar, hydro, nuclear, wind. All of these produce minuscule CO2 emissions, or CO2 have minimal CO2 footprints compared to even the cleanest of fossil fuel burning.
Fair. Wait, also, because I have to hop off in like just 1 minute, but
Sure.
I have two questions, and I also want to DM you about the one-way speed of light. But
Yeah, absolutely, by all means.
But this is more of like this is a negligible point. But do you agree that hydro is actually solar energy?
Well, yeah, of course it is. Everything is solar. So is wind.
Actually, that's a good point. Okay, that's a really good point. Actually,
the only one that's not, by the way, is nuclear. Interestingly enough.
Wait. But and this goes into like me doing the analytics on our green data centers, that we're not like the whole solar aspect was just so like you could be running them more. We just got like credits for building these things, but like the government. But point being, do you think that it would be better if we just ran society off nuclear? I feel like
so generally, I'm generally fond of nuclear if it's done right. The trouble with nuclear is that it takes a really, really long, like the way to do nuclear right is to be very, very safe with it, right? Like we know how to do this, but it takes like in order to build these things safely in like a really efficient, or in order to build these things safely, it takes a long time and it's super expensive. We're talking like 15 to 20 years even to get them to like get these things commissioned, like nuclear power plants. At least with the way that we know how to build them now. So the trouble is if we had kicked up the nuclear production 40 years ago, 30 years ago, yeah. That would be fine. We'd be okay.
We need to find, but does it produce enough waste where we like? I've heard we need to figure out a way though to essentially like
honestly
shoot the
no,
waste
no, you don't want to do that. By the way, you don't want to put nuclear waste into a rocket because rockets explode sometimes, and you really, really don't want to scatter nuclear waste. So we know how to do it. You just basically shove it in a mountain. We really like. There's really not a lot of nuclear waste that's produced. You just bury it under a mountain for 10,000 years.
Interesting. Wait, so why don't you think though, like we're not producing way more nuclear power plants, or at least trying to?
Well, so, what's it called? There was Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island in the 80s, and there was Fukushima 10 years ago. People are just afraid of nuclear, and rightfully so, because when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong.
Yeah, it goes really bad. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the discussion. I might rethink my stance on global or climate change, but yeah. Anyways, I'm definitely going to DM you about the whole one-way speed of light thing, and if not, I'll.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I answered DMs as long as. So just for everybody watching, if the first thing that you send me is a video, almost certainly I will not watch the video. But if you send me a question on a DM, absolutely, I'm happy to answer and talk. So just DM me if you have questions. All right, but I'm gonna let you go, Scotty. Right. But thanks for being here.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for the chat.
It's all the CO2 in the atmosphere making it hard to breathe. All right, let's bring up another guest. Will you be petitioning China to stop building nuclear reactors? Why would I do that? I'm generally pro-nuclear. like, you have to be safe about it. You have to be really, really careful with nuclear reactors. But like, we know how to build safe nuclear reactors now. Why would I want them to stop building nuclear reactors? All right, let's bring up another guest. By the way, y'all, remember to like the live. And if you like what you're seeing, consider following on TikTok, subscribing on YouTube. There's a Cash App in the link tree in my bio. There's a Discord in the link tree in my bio. If you're on YouTube, there's super chats, a whole bunch of ways to support me if that's something you care to do. I do this as a part-time side hustle. Currently, as I recently finished my contract, this is my only side hustle. So, you know, all donations are appreciated. In the meantime, Academia, yes, this is being live streamed on YouTube, so it will be uploaded on YouTube automatically when the live stream's over. What do we have? True Investments. How's it going?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Do you think that humans cause climate change?
Well, do you? Do you think they do?
Yeah, of course. That's why it says we caused climate change in the background.
Well, why's that?
Well, because we can measure the temperature of the Earth, the global average temperature of the Earth, and have measured it for the last 150 years or so.
Wrong.
And we can measure.
That's just wrong. Let me stop you there.
Sorry, I wasn't done yet. And we can measure the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere over time, and we see that they basically rise in the exact same way. CO2 leads the temperature just a little bit, which means that the CO2 is causing the temperature increases. Go ahead.
Well, let me give you my theory. I don't believe that. But
I'm sure.
My theory is that the moon is heating up. And
the moon is heating up?
That's right. All the moonlight shining onto our
Wait
planet.
a minute, hold on. Mike?
Who?
Mike? This is definitely Mike Brigandy. Get out of here. You've done this to me before, too. I know it's Brigandy. I know. Fucking Mike has trolled me so many times. He's good at it, though. He's definitely good at it. Grimlock with the $5. Curious what time you're going to start streaming when you get back to the desert. I think I'm going to try to miss Ian's live time. So I'm thinking like a little bit after an early dinner. Like maybe I'll shoot for like 6. It might, ideally, it'll be like around the same time here, but it'll just be in the evening. So it'll be evening West Coast time or, night East Coast time. But I might start in the middle of the day and then just slowly shift to get people used to it so I don't get a completely new audience. Oh, Ibra. Yeah, I'm from Arizona. Yeah, Grimlock with the $5. Always W Grimlock. I haven't decided yet though. Like I'm just gonna see how it goes. Maybe I'll just do like morning lives West Coast time so that because the thing is one of the issues is that Ian and I have a lot of overlap. And so because I'm changing time zones, I have the opportunity to get rid of that overlap so that people don't have to decide who to watch, me or Ian. So I just need to talk to Ian and figure out what time Ian usually goes live, and then I will probably adjust accordingly. Ibra? Yeah, honestly, if the whole world turns into Arizona, I'd be miserable. So I'm not gonna lie, I think I could take Ian. Oh, actually, no. Ian did boxing, so maybe I couldn't take Ian. Ian was a boxer. I do think I have like 6 inches on him though. On that.
Oh. Hey,
Alexander, how's it going?
Hey, man. Well, I have to say it's an honor to be able to talk to someone famous in person.
I don't think I'm famous.
Oh no, you are, dude. You're definitely famous, and you got 55,000 likes. Well, hearts in this comment. So or this live.
I appreciate the thought. So, Alexander, do you think that we're causing climate change?
Yeah, I think that it's likely nearly 100%. You look at the Occam's razor thing, and you have a very small possibility that there's kind of multiple variables that are contributing that also equate out over the time frame of the acceleratory data that we see in it. So I guess it's theoretically possible, but it has to be very near zero.
So then why do you
But
want to join?
Well, here I have one question. So I just want to get your take on. I have a provisional patent that I'm working on, and I just want to get your take on if you think there would be some viability to it. I'm going to be working with some engineers in a second on it. But essentially, it's actually very simple. It's basically just taking thermoelectric generators and applying an actuator to it. And essentially, the concept I want to do is basically just having a compressing an inert gas like a xenon or something like that, and then you just have the actuated TEGs retract where the temperature cools down enough. And I looked into it, and if you can have about 150 watt actuator, you should, based on my findings so far, be able to compress the xenon gas and get about the amount of energy density of a solar panel. The one issue I'm having with is kind of the ranges of how much cooling
So just to be clear, a TEG. So you want to think you're trying to take a TEG, hook it up to an actuator. To are you just trying to produce more energy from the TEG?
Yeah, exactly. So just compressing the inert gas, a xenon gas or something, to a very, very compressed state, and then retracting it. They have similar systems right now, but they don't have actuated TEGs. They just use pressure variations with relief valves and various things like that. So this kind of makes it simpler, where if I can get the numbers right, I should be able to
just to be clear, you're not gonna get around the first law of thermodynamics, that you're not gonna get more energy out than you put in. So unless you're trying to squeeze out some extra efficiency, because maybe the TEGs that you're thinking of working with are like less than 100% efficient, which of course they are. I don't know how you're going to take the electricity generated by a TEG and then use that to drive an actuator to get more energy out. It seems like you're trying to get around energy conservation, which seems
well, no,
impossible.
it's so the energy just comes from the compression of the xenon gas running into the copper plate that then activates the temperature differential electricity generation in the TEG itself.
Yeah, but in order to compress the xenon gas, you will need to put in an amount of energy to get the xenon gas to the state that you want it to be in. Like just because, I mean, talk to an engineer by all means, but be very, very careful, or be very, very aware that probably they will tell you that you're losing energy by doing this.
Okay, I mean, the numbers I've looked at so far show that the input from the actual actuator is less than what you get for the return of electricity generation from the xenon gas. The xenon gas also has a good amount of stability in pressurized situations, so it just kind of collides and doesn't actually break down that consistently.
So I don't know anything about the specific details of the thing that you're describing, because it's kind of hard to follow, and a diagram would help. But all I'm saying is just be very, very careful that you're not thinking that you're getting energy out without more energy coming in, because you can never forget about the laws of thermodynamics. They will always bite you in the ass. But look, I don't do patent law. I don't do patent approval, so I'm going to kick you out.
All right, man. Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
My computer is so slow, it takes forever to actually get people out, because I used to be hot on the money. I would just be like, pew, 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 you're gone, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone. Right? But not today. Not today. Not with this slow-ass computer. All right, let's see if do we have any other guests? Let's see. It's my power settings. It is, but that's because my computer can't run in turbo mode anymore, unfortunately. Because Garba Gaming with $5 Canadian. Thank you. The sources I find suggest that Earth emits about 350 gigatons annually, while we add about 40 gigatons to that. That's where I get the 10%. Okay. And I imagine that it absorbs about 350 gigatons too, so yeah, people starting Teslas with petrol generators, that is absolutely funny. Can you debate on some topics which are not so straightforward? Look, see, here's the secret to being a good debate lord, right? This is the secret. The secret is debate topics that are obvious that people still, for some reason, disagree with. That's the real secret. Turns out, you don't have to be too smart when you're debating something that's true. Yeah, exactly. Never debate things that you think are wrong, because then your arguments will be false. So easy. I don't know why more people don't do that. But, however, currently, we have no guests. So what we will do, I think, is we might... I suppose we could transition to Flat Earth. We could just turn on a Flat Earth really quick. I mean, we could just do it. Do you guys just want to do it? Do you guys just want to switch and we can just do some Flat Earth debates? I don't have the moon landing background set up. But yeah, oh, actually, we have a guest. Let's take on one more guest, and then maybe we'll change. We'll take on another guest. If the debates keep coming, then if the guests keep coming, then we'll keep on debating. Otherwise we'll switch to Flat Earth. The thing about the Flat Earth is that the Flat Earthers, they run away nowadays. Like, they just don't. Yeah, unfortunately, I love this topic. Oh, Scotty, you're not new. No, Scotty, no. The thing about I haven't even gotten to talk about the sea sponges. I love the sea sponges. The sea sponges are the best. All right, so I'm going to restart the stream on you. Actually, let's yeah, we're gonna restart the stream on YouTube. And just so I can change the title. Oh, we have hold on, maybe not. We have another guest. We have Kay. Yeah, it's easier to run away when you don't have to run uphill. That's so true. That is a really, really good analogy. I love that. Kay, how's it going?
Hello. Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Do you think that humans are causing climate change?
So, actually, I'm really interested in getting into this. No.
Why not?
Now, well, so let me step back here. I don't think I can debate climate change because the people who are in favor of global warming gave up on calling it global warming and called it climate change because they couldn't hold to their global warming theory. So I'm quite willing to debate global warming.
To be clear, part of climate change is a warming globe.
So
the reason it was called the reason why it was like rebranded is because the warming of the globe is not the only thing that's happening.
So that's fine. So then anybody who accepts climate change will also argue that it's man-made global warming?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because a lot of people that I've debated climate change with say, nope, it's gotten colder because of climate change.
It hasn't gotten colder.
They've moved it to an impossible thing to debate. But yeah,
to be clear, it hasn't gotten colder, right? It is absolutely warmer now than it was 150 years ago.
150 years ago, but the temperature's gone down in the interim between there. There's been periods of
do you want to bet?
Temperature drop. Oh no, it happened. When it was called global warming. Then I think it was 2000. Temperatures went down. They couldn't account for the temperature drop. They changed the wording to climate change because the theories had fallen apart. And then they said, oh, the heat all went into the ocean.
Do you want to bet?
Well,
hold on, one sec. Hold on, we got this.
So let's debate just global warming. I can't debate climate change, but I can absolutely debate global warming.
What does this chart look like?
That's mean, and how is that measured?
So in this case, this is data taken from the Goddard Institute for Space Studies, and they source the surface temperature analysis. It's given here. It looks like that they have some stations that are located in various places. I also imagine that they use satellite data as well. But what does that chart look like to you?
Well, so you have some temperature increase.
By the way,
and is that
like this is some temperature increase? Like it's clearly going up.
so? Now, but in order for your theory to be correct, you're going to overlay that with what the CO2 levels in the atmosphere. I mean, so I want to critique the theory. I don't want to.
Yeah. You want to see that? You want to see that too?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because I want to critique the theory of global warming. So the theory is that
what's the critique?
Carbon dioxide is the leading greenhouse gas. It's human. It's humans putting that into the atmosphere, and that's warming the globe.
Yep. What's the critique?
That the number one global warming gas is what? And the actual number one in the atmosphere is what?
Well, it depends on what you mean by number one. Are you talking about potency? Are you talking about lifetime? What are you talking about?
The one that contributes the most to global warming is
it depends.
Water vapor.
So water vapor does contribute heavily. So does CO2. So does methane.
But if you look at it, you say CO2 and methane contribute heavily, but the amount of water vapor in the air absolutely dwarfs carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a trace gas in the atmosphere. It's what 400 parts per million. I mean, it's nearly non-existent at 400 parts per million. Water vapor. We have oceans full of water. Water vapor is vastly more of a contributor to global warming than CO2.
So prior to the 1850s or so, maybe 1820s, the water vapor in the atmosphere was basically the same as it is today. It's a little bit more now because the Earth is warmer. But it was basically the same as it is today. And the Earth's climate wasn't warming, at least not in this way. It wasn't really changing in this way. So what caused the currently experienced climate change over the last 150 years?
So someone could simply say increase in solar activity.
Well, you could say that, but you'd be wrong, because there hasn't been a significant increase in solar activity in the last 150 years.
Or one could say that. Well, you could say maybe there's a source that we don't understand that's contributing to it, one that we don't know about. It could be anything. The question is it man-made?
Yes,
and
it
carbon
is.
dioxide,
we can actually prove causation, interestingly enough.
So let's take a look at the carbon dioxide.
We can mathematically prove causation.
You can prove that carbon dioxide is causing the heating.
Yes.
So then explain to me this:
actually.
why are the ice shelves in Antarctica increasing in size? If the world is warming, and now all of a sudden they've started increasing in size, if the temperature goes down, where's the temperature? I mean, it should be impossible for the temperature to go down.
Not necessarily. Not if it's slightly cooler in some places, but significantly warmer in other places. The average is still an increase, right?
You're talking about so then if we compare that to what we're saying is that how do we know that the atmosphere simply can't let off the extra heat? We don't know.
Where is it going? Where would it go? What do you mean we don't know? We understand thermodynamics. What are you talking about?
Well, for instance, you can have a cycle where simply you increase the temperature a little bit, and that increases the amount of water vapor that raises up. It takes energy to raise water out of the oceans. It carries that heat up, and it's simply released into the atmosphere. There's water cycles.
Where does the heat go when it's released into the atmosphere? You know that just means that the atmosphere gets hotter, right?
But then it goes into space. All of it ends up going into space.
No, it doesn't, because it's re-radiated down and it's re-radiated up, and the stuff that gets re-radiated down, that's the problem. Also, what is happening?
But if you take a look at the H2O molecule and you take a look at the carbon dioxide molecule, there's only one wavelength of light that that carbon dioxide absorbs that water doesn't.
Water vapor is a strong greenhouse gas, but CO2 is the thing that's been changing. And so if the water vapor is basically the same, but the CO2 has been changing, that's where the problem comes in.
But it's such a small concentration in the atmosphere that we've doubled it. We've doubled it, but we doubled it from 200 parts per million to 400. That is such a minuscule number.
That's double. Okay, so just to be clear, if you took the concentration of cyanide in your blood from 0 to 200 parts per million, would you be fine with that? Because it's a minuscule amount.
If you're talking about cyanide,
yep.
cyanide is much different. That is CO2 and H2O
cyanide.
are
Cyanide's
similar.
different because in small amounts it's not dangerous, because in small amounts it's so dangerous. CO2 is dangerous in small amounts. That's the point.
Because CO2 is so similar to H2O,
and because it lasts so long in the atmosphere. That's the problem.
But the O2 is always in the atmosphere. We've got oceans full of it. It's raining down rain upon us.
Yes, that's the point. It doesn't stay in the atmosphere for very long.
No. But we have oceans full of water. And if you go down to the jungles, the humidity is incredibly high there. We have massive amounts of H2O. So I mean, like, for instance, in the jungles, CO2 would make no difference because there's always humidity in the air. It would only be a difference maybe in the northern or southern parts of the atmosphere where CO2 would be there where water vapor isn't in higher concentrations.
So the point let's say that we grant, and because it's true, water vapor is a strong greenhouse gas, period. If the levels of water vapor in the atmosphere, on average across the Earth, remains relatively constant, and the CO2 levels remain relatively constant, and the temperature doesn't change, that means that we're in equilibrium, right? That's what equilibrium means. Now, if you increase the amount of CO2, but keep the water vapor the same, and then the temperature starts to rise, what does that mean?
If it were a closed system, it'd be fine. But the Earth is so complex.
You should answer the question.
Well, controlling everything else. If you controlled everything else, then yes. If you could control it that well, if you could control all the variables, I would agree with you. If we could take 1,000 Earths and we could increase carbon dioxide on 1,000 of them, and 999.
This is basically what happened. The water vapor levels in the atmosphere have hardly changed. In fact, I can't find any plot that shows any significant change whatsoever. So the question is if the water vapor is not changing and the CO2 is, doesn't that say that the thing that's changing is causing the increase in temperature?
So then if we look at historic data and we say, did carbon dioxide precede global warming? Because the Earth's been much warmer in the past. If we go back, I don't know, 50 million years, it was much warmer.
Yep.
And there were no humans around. So we know that the temperature on the Earth can get much hotter without humans.
Absolutely.
So then when at least the studies that I've seen have shown that the carbon dioxide increases after the global temperatures increase.
Yeah, that's happened at every. So interesting. It's funny that you bring that up because that's a good point. In every single instance of of global temperature increase and CO2 increase in the past, which we can look at, it's always been the case that temperature increase was before CO2 increase, except this time. This time, CO2 is increasing before the temperature is increasing.
And so now we have this theory. And I mean, look, I'm with John Coleman, the founder of the Weather Channel. He said, look, he said this 20 years ago. He said, this is a train on the tracks. He said, the only thing that's really going to turn it is when the Earth gets real cold. He said, it'll get cold. And so that's my prediction, that it's going to get cold again. And I think it's already getting cold again. I think you see that in the increase of the ice shelf in Antarctica. We don't see the ice caps disappearing in the north. In fact, they're growing.
I don't think that's true.
And so, what's that?
I don't think that's true.
Well, the Antarctic ice shelf is increasing. That's a new study that came out, and nobody can explain it.
So why don't we look at the total ice caps in the Earth? Is that not something that we can look at?
Sure.
The total global ice cap. Hold on, I'm pulling up a chart. Here we go. Here we go. Here's a chart. We love charts. Gotta love charts here. This is a teensy bit smaller. So here we have, in red, we have Antarctica. In blue, we have Greenland, which is another huge source of ice. It's our northern ice cap, essentially. And what it looks like is that, like, yeah, for like a little bit in like 2022, 2023, like the ice cap in Antarctica has increased slightly. But Greenland has been like plummeting. And the total is still a downward trend for both.
Okay, so there's some data that the Earth is warming.
No, there's no. What do you mean? What do you mean? There's some data. All of the data is the Earth is warming. What are you talking about?
Well, so then if you look at the end of that event of the Antarctic data, it looks like it's starting to increase.
So okay, so to be clear, are you confusing short-term effects with climate change? Because you can have a cold winter and still have a net average increase in the global temperature.
But if the atmosphere is able to get rid of that heat,
how do you okay? How do you think?
So it's able to control the distribution of that heat.
How do you think the atmosphere gets rid of heat?
But I mean, there could be lots of ways to get rid of it by simply creating more clouds.
There's only one way. There's only one way that the atmosphere gets rid of heat. There's only one way that the Earth loses heat, and it's by thermal radiation from the surface of the Earth and from the atmosphere out into space. That's the only way that the Earth gets rid of heat, right?
Well, I mean, yes. Ultimately, at the ultimate scale,
that's the only way that the Earth loses heat. It's just thermal radiation.
It has to be through thermal radiation. Yes.
Now, if the Earth has better absorbers of infrared light in the atmosphere, so when the Earth radiates its energy off into space or off into the atmosphere, so the surface of the Earth radiates energy because the Earth is fairly warm, radiates energy. The more infrared absorbers there are in the atmosphere, the less of that radiation will escape. It'll just get trapped in the atmosphere, and then it'll radiate back down, and less of it will radiate back up than it would have otherwise. So there's not really like some other mechanism by which the Earth can lose heat. It's just if the Earth has more infrared absorbers, then you're stuck. That heat gets trapped.
Well, no. In climate science, I mean, for instance, clouds you can use your energy to raise up water, and if you raise the water up, you can absolutely radiate. You can bring water or something containing heat up higher than the atmosphere, and then it's going to be able to radiate it easier.
So to be clear, clouds winds, and water in general. By the way, you should look at this. There is a water vapor concentration by altitude. One sec. Yeah, that's what I want. Water vapor concentration by altitude. The actual water vapor in the atmosphere is very, very low at any altitudes above 50,000 meters. Most of the water vapor is very, very low in the atmosphere. That's why it doesn't have that much of an effect, by the way, or as much of an effect as you might think. Almost all of the water vapor is below like Mount Everest height, whereas the top of the stratosphere and the troposphere, this is where a lot of the bad business with like CO2 emissions and the like are dangerous because they hang out higher.
So
they can basically block the radiation, whereas the CO2 doesn't really do that because it's already pretty low. Sorry, the water vapor doesn't really do that because it's already pretty low.
Okay, so I mean, so what you're saying is that in the theory, the carbon dioxide sits at a higher altitude than the water vapor.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, I'd have to look at that. I'd have to look at that and see. I don't know high altitude chemistry and atmospheric composition to tell people that. So all I know is that especially in the
I mean,
2000s,
you want to look? We can look.
Global temperatures dropped, and they said that the heat went into the oceans. That's where they said the heat went. So
to be like, do you just want to look at a temperature profile? Like, we could just look at a temperature profile.
Well, no, it's not about a temperature profile. It's that I mean, look, once global temperatures fall and it gets cold all around the Earth, the global warming debate is over.
On what grounds what evidence do you think will lead you? What evidence do you think? Sorry, let me ask that question properly. What evidence do you have to think that will actually happen?
Well, so if the core theory that methane and carbon dioxide are what's causing global warming, and if that theory is flawed, then the warming is caused by something else. And that something else is beyond human control.
This group,
and historically, the temperatures fall. We've seen it. We've seen it before. We've seen little ice ages in the past. We don't know what causes the little ice ages. We've seen real ice ages. There's an awful lot of factors.
Wait, actually,
involved.
we do know what caused the little ice age. I'm sorry.
Oh, what?
It just sounds like you're talking your ass. No. It was an anomalous solar medium. The sun basically skipped a solar maximum or two in the, I think it was like the 1600s or something like that.
Okay, so essentially, okay. Well, I mean, I can just tell you that if CO2 and methane, human produced, are the root cause of global warming, then the temperatures are going to keep rising. They're just going to keep rising, and there isn't going to be any drop in that. Our ancient, progenitor living organisms have all lived through it. We've all survived it. So
yeah, we didn't have cities with millions of people in it that were bordering on the ocean that would be basically destroyed if the sea level rose by a foot.
Yeah, and sea level rise has I mean, look, if you go look at Plymouth Rock, it's still there.
Do you think sea level rise hasn't happened?
Well, Plymouth Rock's still there. It's sitting there. I'm waiting for Plymouth Rock to be underwater. Then when Plymouth Rock is constantly underwater.
Wait. Do you want to see the sea level rise over the last 150 years?
Sea level rise over. I mean, I know Plymouth Rock's still there, so it couldn't be that high.
Here, let me show you.
It's sitting there. I'm waiting for it to be underwater.
You probably think that like people will just move away from Florida and sell their houses if the sea level rises too much, huh?
No, I don't think it's real. I don't think the people in charge actually think it's real. If they did,
sea level compared to 1933 to 2008 average. So this starts in 1880. It was 183 millimeters. That's about 7 inches less than it was between 1993 and 2008. And now it is about 86 millimeters higher than it was like 20 years ago. So the sea level has risen about 10 inches in the last 140 years.
In recent history, it hasn't gone up at all. I've seen that data. I'd have to look at the data. I have to look at all people's data. I mean, scientists get their funding from the government.
In the last 20 years, it's gone up by like 3 inches. Like what?
In the last 20 years, that sea levels. I need to see some. I mean, I've brought up Plymouth Rock.
I just showed it to you. Wait, no, I just showed it to you.
Still see it today. So when it was placed.
So to be clear, hold on. You know that Plymouth Rock is not in the same place that it was 400 years ago. You know that, right?
You're saying that it was moved inland?
It's not in the original location. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that I haven't heard about.
Have you even Googled this? The rock is, and by the way, the rock is regularly underwater at high tide.
Yeah, and when they landed, was it at high tide? I don't know.
The rock is not in the same place that it was 400 years ago.
I mean, that one I'll have to go look. So they say they moved the rock up so it wasn't flooded by water?
Well, I don't know why they moved it up, but it's not in the same place. So apparently in 1749 it was moved due to the construction of a wharf. The removal of its top portion was in 1774, and it was later the wharf's top portion was removed in 1774, and it was later excavated and relocated onto the shoreline in 1920.
Oh, wow. Gotta look at that one. I don't have a computer to bring up those facts with me, but that's what I'm wondering. And the other thing is that look, the politicians who were in charge have spent $20 trillion on so-called climate change. And they have not expanded nuclear reactors. They have done nothing to make a meaningful reduction in the amount of carbon dioxide emissions. And
where'd you get the $20 trillion number?
That's the Manhattan Institute. If you look that up, they've spent $20 trillion. I think it's one giant boondoggle that they could have absolutely developed nuclear reactors that will not melt down. They could have absolutely done these kind of technologies. This is. And so if they're saying it's man-made and they're not acting in a rational manner, you could say that they have another belief.
So just to be clear, so you're citing a conservative think tank rather than like a scientific analysis
of the amount of money so far spent on climate change. I mean,
yeah. Why
just an analysis. I mean,
well, no,
are you saying that less money's been spent?
The Manhattan well, I don't know. I haven't even seen the claim, but the Manhattan Institute is a non-profit conservative think tank.
Yeah,
So
but
like
I don't
they're
think they're gonna
partisan. They're
lie.
partisan. They're not like why do you distrust nonpartisan scientists but you trust a partisan think tank?
No, because the whole scientific industry is partisan. I mean, if scientists
on what grounds? On what grounds do you say that?
they get their funding from politicians. If they were to get their funding from, if any scientist was able to get funding for any kind of research,
where do you think the Manhattan Institute gets its funding from?
So no. So you're absolutely fair in questioning them. You could say they're total bunk and they're not.
So
truthful.
what?
That's
Right.
absolutely
So who's sorry? What incentive does like what incentive does like a 31-year-old making $50K a year, working in a lab 50 hours a week? What incentive do they have to lie about climate change?
Because if they want to get a grant, they have to go with the prevailing theories. You're not allowed to go and do something else. It's like the same
Where
thing.
do you think? Where do you think the prevailing theories came from?
So the entire scientific system. Anybody who questions the system ends up getting. I'm not the only one who questions it.
Where do you think the prevailing theory came from?
Of global climate change.
And global, yeah. Where do you think it came from?
So it was a theory in the scientific community. It got picked up by politicians. Al Gore's the perfect example. A guy who said, "Oh, this is real. The polar bears are going to be dead." He made all these predictions in his movie. It's totally false. He set up 12. He built a mansion with 14
you already answered the question, and now you're just talking about a red herring. Where did the theory come from?
It came from the scientific community.
On what grounds do you have for thinking that the scientific community is lying about this?
Because the way the scientific community is structured, politicians fund the scientific community.
I mean, not all of them. And to be clear, a lot of research funding, including my research funding when I was a grad student, came from the tuition of the students that I had to TA for example. Like it just came from the tuition. It didn't come from the government.
You can say it comes from so then it came from whoever's in charge of the universities. Then they direct where the money goes. They decide.
No. So just be like, do you know anyone in a scientific field?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, I'm not making. Look, I'll just reference Sabine Hausfelder. She believes in global warming, but she also says that the research and into fundamental particle physics is skewed because.
What does that have to do with? Sorry, what does that have to do with climate change?
Well, because if your proposition is that scientists are pure and that their research isn't,
they are less likely to be politically biased than a conservative think tank.
They're highly political biased and they don't have a choice.
Sorry, to be clear, who do you think is more likely to skew the data? The scientists doing and collecting the data and doing the science, or a conservative think tank that is financially incentivized and formed precisely to push back against green policy making? Which is more biased? Which is more likely to be biased?
I would have to see the people in charge, but
so do you think that generally a smaller institution is more likely to be biased, or a larger, like, I don't mean institution, I mean like a collection of people? If you have 10,000 people versus 50 people, which group is more likely to be able to be bought easily?
Well, that's it doesn't matter. I mean, which ones? I mean, I can't tell. I mean, absolutely, you can have one person that's right.
So hold on, let's be honest here.
Yes.
All else being equal, which group is easier to be bought? 50 people or 10,000 people?
So this is it. You've got to look at the motivations behind what they're doing. Now,
if
the
honest,
conservatives are doing it because...
Answer the question. Which group is more easily able to be bought? 50 people or 10,000 people?
It depends on the individuals. So
all else being equal, which group is more likely?
All else being equal, 50 people are cheaper to buy than 10,000.
Now, do you think that there are more climate scientists or more people working at the Manhattan Institute?
There's more climate scientists.
Okay. Probably by a few orders of magnitude, right?
Oh yeah, sure. There's a lot more. There's a huge climate science industry.
Yeah, and most of the research that's being done is basically done by grad students and postdocs, people who are paid pretty little, people who aren't getting enormous government grants. They're basically they're getting paid maybe 50 or 60K a year. These are people who are highly trained. So why on earth would they lie about their own research?
So hold on here. Now there's a big difference between lying and having your research influenced and your the things you're able to study influence. If you question man-made global warming, your career's done. Unless you're, like Freeman Dyson, unless you're an absolute Nobel Prize winner. Even the
to be
Nobel
clear,
Prize winners who
you're citing an example of somebody who questions global warming and still has his career, and this is your evidence that if you question global warming, then your career's done.
Well, because I know of no one who's a PhD student who would question global warming openly to any of their
Do you know of
professors?
So maybe that's because they are familiar with the data and they know global warming, climate change is real.
They would never say with 100% certitude. They would say we believe it with a certain level. And then at the same time, they would have to ask, then why aren't politicians acting in the most reasonable method to combat that global warming?
We know why, because of places like the Manhattan Institute.
Well, no, because they've spent money on wind turbines and solar panels and every other conceivable thing besides setting up nuclear reactors that produce electricity and do not get rid of and do not emit carbon dioxide. There's no reason why we couldn't absolutely reduce the world's carbon dioxide emissions in a short order with a small percentage of what we've already spent on this on green energy.
You know why? By the way, I absolutely agree that nuclear is generally a good thing. You know why that the U.S. hasn't built so many new nuclear reactors, right?
Because it would solve the problem.
No. What? You think that it's like some vast? No, it's because people are afraid of nuclear energy. There were two enormous disasters, 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, in the 80s. And the people who are voting today, the people who are running our government today, 50 and 60 and 70-year-olds, these are the largest share of voters, and these are the people who were young adults, early adults, 20s and 30, 20 years old, 30 years old, whatever, when those enormous disasters hit within 10 years of each other. And it scared people shitless about nuclear. And I understand that. It is scary. But obviously, we know how to build safer nuclear reactors now. But now it's too late.
I don't think it's too late. Anybody can say, hey, we've got a nuclear reactor that isn't going to do a 3 Mile Island. It's not going to do a Chernobyl.
No. How long do you think it takes to commission a nuclear reactor?
Well, if you put very little effort and very little money into it, it takes a very long time. If you put a lot of money and effort into it, you can
it's about 15 to 20 years.
Yes, it takes 15 to 20 years with limited resources.
Yeah, so are you willing to invest more money on non-fossil fuel related? Are you willing to pay more taxes to invest more money on non-fossil fuel related energy sources?
If we had taken the money that we've already spent and done it towards those things, then they could already be completed by now.
Why not just take the money that we spend on oil and gas, rather than taking the money that we spend on other things that don't destroy our world?
Well, because because of poor people. If we're going to go here, there isn't an infinite amount of money. We have limited resources on the earth. We have to distribute those limited resources.
Yeah. And so take the limited resources away from the oil and gas industry and put it into nuclear.
But that would necessarily, if you take it from oil and gas, necessarily spike the price of all goods. All goods rely on oil and gas to be produced, or nearly all goods. We've even seen this.
Are you telling me that you want socialism for the oil and gas industry?
Socialism for the oil and gas industry? No,
government
not
socialism with subsidies?
I'm not saying you need to subsidize the oil and gas industry.
Oh, okay, so let's just cut the subsidies for the oil and gas industries.
And so the subsidies for the oil and gas industry, at least as far as I know them, is tax rebates for oil exploration.
How much do you think the global subsidies for the fossil fuel industry was in, say, 2022?
So that we have to define subsidies. What are you saying by subsidies? Are you saying tax rebates for oil exploration?
So direct government support, as well as the unaccounted costs of climate change, pollution, and environmental damage.
Okay, and who are we citing?
This is just coming from the. I mean, if you probably don't like the IMF, but there's also a study from. Well, here, let me pull up the actual article.
But so if it's tax credits to oil and gas, it's like, well, so they're going to just get rid of taxes.
So this,
I mean,
this
that's
is
not fair
a
to say
this
it's
is from a
subsidy if we're
paper.
taxing it.
This is from a paper in the journal World Development, written by David Coati, Ian Perry, Louis Sears, and Baoping Sheng.
So they probably, I mean, I don't know that publication directly.
Yeah, it's an academic publication, so that's not so surprising. They estimated the global fossil fuel subsidies at about $5 trillion in 2015.
And those are through tax, from are those through is that through capital, is that through subsidies for
so these are going to be direct subsidies, and they're also going to be damages that are not paid for.
Oh, damages.
So like pollution and shit. That like
yeah, that's that. I mean that.
Wait, so we're supposed to allow the fossil fuel industry to pollute without having to pay for it?
If you're looking at what's brought people out of poverty, I mean, oil has been the fuel of freedom. So yeah, I mean it's brought more people out of poverty than anything else. I mean, if you look at
are you interested in just? I mean, we could just talk about direct subsidies.
Sure. How much? Subsidies. I mean, so direct subsidies, not tax credits.
No, these are things like tax. These are things like exactly like tax credits. Exactly like here's money so that you can go drill more oil and produce more electricity from the oil and gas.
But if an oil company spends money to find oil, and then they say, well, we want a tax credit against the money we're making off our other oil. That's like, well, I mean, so then just stop taxing oil, and then the subsidies all disappear. Sure, get rid of all taxes. I have no trouble with that.
No, so we would charge them the taxes that they owe. That's what a subsidy. That's what undoing a subsidy does.
But then they wouldn't search for oil, and oil prices would spike, and we'd have like $50 gas instead of $5.
Oh, so wait, these are industries that can only function if the government support them?
No, if government taxes them out of existence, then
so paying their fair share in taxes is taxing them out of existence. I thought that why can't they just function in a competitive market? Why do they need help from the government?
Because the taxation on them reduces oil production. If oil production's reduced, oil prices go up.
You're telling me that they can't they can't compete in the market with other energy sources?
No. What I'm saying is what the Democrats say. The Democrats say, hey, we shouldn't tax capital gains at a high rate. We should subsidize things that are important to do by giving people tax breaks.
Well, I mean, it just sounds like there are other energy sources that are not subsidized as much, right? Like hydro isn't subsidized nearly as much as like hydroelectric, I should say, isn't subsidized nearly as much as the fossil fuel industry. So why can't the fossil fuel industry fairly compete against the hydroelectric industry?
It has to do with, well, one, the hydroelectric industry is getting crushed. I don't know of any new hydro plants that are getting built in the United States.
Maybe because the fossil fuel industry is getting subsidized and the hydroelectric industry isn't. It seems like you're not interested in free market capitalism, my guy. Can't compete in the open market, so you have to subsidize the fossil fuel industries?
Well, no. Free market capitalism is fine. Just get rid of the taxes. That's free market capitalism. Just don't have any taxes on it.
Wait. So I mean, we can't get rid of taxes. Like, that's just not going to happen. But what we can do is we can level the playing field so that everybody pays the same taxes, right?
Everybody
instead of basically just giving the fossil fuel companies money in the form of just saying, yeah, you don't have to pay taxes, but these other energy production modes do have to pay taxes. Why not just let them compete in the free market of ideas?
Get rid of the taxes on them. Get rid of taxes on everybody. I mean, the fact is that the oil industry is taxed more than any other industry out there.
Wait, no, they're not. That's the point. They have enormous subsidies, so they don't pay nearly as much taxes as other energy production modes do. That's the whole point. They get like trillions of dollars in subsidies.
Well, they produce trillions of dollars in taxes, where hydro plants just aren't producing taxes.
Let's find out.
Yeah.
Let us find out.
I mean,
Oh,
and let's look at
So,
China.
are you
and how, as
hold on.
producing-
Before we completely change the topic and pivot, are you familiar with Investopedia?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so it's generally like a libertarian-friendly website. They talk about like personal finance and things like that. Generally pretty reputable, pretty impartial. This is an article from 2024 entitled "How Oil Companies Pay Such Low Taxes."
Okay. So,
did you know that oil companies reduced their effective tax rate by 14% in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act?
okay. When did that pass?
2017. That was under Trump. And let me read you this paragraph. Oil companies can and often do defer federal tax payment. A report published by Taxpayers for Common Sense in 2014 revealed that from 2009 to 2013, through numerous tax provisions in the tax code granting special status to oil companies, the 20 largest oil and gas companies were able to defer payments on up to half of their federal income taxes. These companies paid 11.7% of their pre-tax income, which is 23.3 percentage points less than required of most other corporations. Why are they paying less in taxes than you are?
Because they're going around digging holes out in the middle of nowhere looking for oil. It costs a lot of money to send people out to the ends of the earth to dig oil. The North Sea, in Texas to find fracking opportunities in Dakotas. It costs a lot of money. It's a very expensive thing to do. The oil industry pays some of the highest wages in the country.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How's the boot taste?
Come on now,
bro. You're shilling so hard for oil companies. You're like, look. If an oil baron,
coal is fantastic. I'm out here talking about
coal, oil, fossil fuel industry. If an oil baron was in this chat right now, you would be salivating.
Hardly. I really am. No, I don't like poverty. I think that the left is pushing for hardcore poverty. I think that
you don't like
they're
poverty,
not interested
but
in
you wait. So to be clear, you don't like poverty, but you'd rather wait. Do you want to go look at the the profits of the oil and gas industry in the last 20 years?
Go look at how much they paid out in salaries. Give me that number. How much has the oil and gas industry paid out in salaries? Give me that number.
Okay, I'll do you both. Okay, so
excellent.
The oil and gas industry profits, according to Precedence Research, but I'm sure we can find this number is basically the same everywhere. Actually, do you like Statista? Statista's a pretty good.
I don't look at Statista.
Okay, well, I'm going to anyway. So Statista is usually pretty reasonable. I hate that they hide their data. It's so annoying. So let's pull up. That's from, I think, is this going to 2022? So, oh, that's how much they borrowed. We don't want that. We want the actual profits. Profits in millions of dollars at 2020 prices. So, oh, this doesn't even give a chart. Doesn't even give a, oh, that's shocking. So, this is from Reuters. Reuters is a pretty centrist reporting outfit. So the top Western oil and gas companies paid out to investors a record $110 billion in dividends and share repurchases in 2022 as profits soared. Do you want me to just show you how the oil and gas industry's what's it called? Their dividends have changed over time? Like the amount of dividends that they're sending out?
No. It would be salaries. How much have they paid out in salaries? How much have they paid out in contracts to
dividends and share repurchases are they're correlated with anyway corporate profits, right?
Sure. They make corporate profits, but
we agree that their profits are soaring, right?
Yes, and with that, so have their expenditures and the amount of jobs they've created has been incredible.
No, their profits are soaring.
Yeah, but the jobs that they offer to people, the positive economic impact they've had on humans' lives has been absolutely phenomenal.
So except they don't pay for any of the externalities, right? Oh, this is real bad for you. This is okay. No, actually, this only goes to 2015. So I can go find something more recent. Oh, that's wild. You know that more people are employed by clean energy sources than fossil fuel sources, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure they are. That's the whole boondoggle that's been created. It's a whole boondoggle industry. The like for instance.
Wait, why is that a bad thing? Don't we like people being employed?
No. Because the production of
don't we like people being
wind
employed?
energy and solar energy will never reduce carbon dioxide emissions because they rely on so much carbon dioxide to produce them. Like
Wait,
if you look at
are you
how
delusional?
long,
like that's not true, right?
No, it's absolutely true.
Okay, hold on.
Anything in this,
I'm gonna quiz you. What is the total lifetime emission of 1 kilowatt hour or of 1 kilowatt energy production of what is the total CO2 emission averaged over the lifetime of a solar panel that produces 1 kilowatt of energy? What's the CO2 footprint?
Oh, it's got to be enormous. They're all coming from China, and they're built with coal-fired power plants.
It's about 41 kilograms. It's about 41 kilograms per kilowatt, if I remember correctly. But I can pull up the number for you. So, actually, I'll just show you a chart. Charts are great, right? We love charts.
Charts can lie, right? What's Mark Twain say about facts?
You know how it's easier to lie easier to lie than with statistics. It's easier to lie without statistics.
Like, no. I mean, the whole thing about how the green industry employs more people than the oil industry is a perfect example. And it's an industry that can't maintain itself without massive government subsidies.
So why don't we look at this? Why don't we look at this chart? So this is from 2014. It's gotten actually much better because we're way more efficient at making solar panels, and solar panels are way more efficient now. They produce a lot more electricity. But so the life cycle CO2 equivalent emissions. So not all production of solar panels produce only CO2. There's also other greenhouse gases, so they do it in CO2 equivalent. This is in grams per kilowatt hour produced. So gas, which is the cleanest type of fossil fuel emission, is 490 grams per kilowatt hour. A solar panel is 41, less than 10%. Wind is 11 grams per kilowatt hour, which is like 2% of gas. Like you're just wrong. Like these other modes of energy production are way less CO2 efficient.
So, well, I've got to go look at this one. It's from the IPCC, so these guys are. I will go and take a look at it, but the last data I saw, which was pretty recent, was that when you actually look at it,
let me guess, it was from the Manhattan Institute?
Carbon dioxide. What's that?
It was from the Manhattan Institute, right?
What is? Oh, the 20 trillion.
Last data that you looked at. No, I'm talking about the last data that you looked at with regards to CO2.
Yeah.
Okay, so could it be that maybe the Manhattan Institute isn't giving you correct information if everybody else is saying the opposite?
Well, no. They said 20 trillion's been spent, and then you just told me
I'm talking about the CO2 emissions from a solar panel.
Oh, the CO2. I don't know. I didn't get CO2 emissions from the Manhattan Institute for solar panels. No, that one I'd have to get in front of me. I don't have a computer in front of me, so.
So I mean, generally, like it's kind of obvious, right? Like it doesn't produce that much. It doesn't take that much energy to make a solar panel. And once you make it, it doesn't produce any CO2, right?
That's true.
So like it should be kind of obvious that obviously solar panels, obviously wind turbines, obviously hydroelectric, these are all things that are obviously going to take way less or produce way less CO2 over their lifespan, right?
I've got to go see the other data. You're right. I don't have that in front of me, so I wish I did. Then I could cite it, and then we could have a discussion on that. So with lack of evidence on that, you're right. You could probably do it.
So, do you think that we should do anything about the the oceans getting warmer, the oceans rising, the ice caps melting, the more intense weather events?
Now that gets into well, now that gets into a question of the what damage economically will be caused by the global warming.
Do you?
That's
I
being
have
claimed.
data on that. You want data on that?
Well, then no, because that all of a sudden there you're into absolute. I mean, it's complete. I mean, it's just
We love
estimated theories.
No. These we have scientific data on this. We can analyze
You can have
this stuff
scientific
scientifically.
data on the economic impacts of global warming, because that's I mean that wouldn't be you can't test it. Like you couldn't it would be, it's a social science. All you can do is estimate.
Climatology is a social science.
Climatology, economic impact is economics is a social science.
I'm just going to read you the abstract for this paper that was published in where was it published? Communications, Earth and Environment, which is a scientific journal. This was last year. Climate impacts on economic productivity indicate that climate change may threaten price stability. Here we apply fixed effects regression to over 27,000 observations of monthly consumer price indices worldwide to quantify the impacts of climate conditions on inflation. Higher temperatures increase food and headline inflation persistently over 12 months in both higher and lower income countries. Effects vary across seasons and regions depending on climatic norms, with further impacts from daily temperature variability and extreme precipitation. Evaluating these results under temperature increases projected for 2035 implies upward pressures on food and headline inflation of 0.92 to 3.23 and 0.32 to 1.18 percentage points per year, respectively, on average globally. Uncertainty ranges across emission scenarios, climate models, and empirical specifications. Pressures are largest at low latitudes and show strong seasonality at high latitudes, peaking in summer. Finally, the 2022 extreme summer heat increased food inflation in Europe by 0.43 to 0.93 percentage points, which warming projected for 2035 would amplify by 30 to 50%. What do you think?
Oh, I think that abandoning green energy, solar panels and wind, and just going, you can easily make more money than is caused by the impact in that paper. So if that's it, then
wait,
absolutely.
So inflation is fine?
No. What I'm saying is you can combat all that inflation by abandoning all these green subsidies. Absolutely. Stop wasting all this money.
So hold on. To be clear, you're fine with fossil fuel. To be clear, you're fine with fossil fuel subsidies, but green subsidies, how dare they? To be clear, you were asking what the economic effects were, and here they are. I can show you more if you want.
No. What I'm saying is that they, like, for instance, you get total. It employs more people, and yet is economically unviable.
There are more.
If we're economically viable,
so wait. Hold on. We like jobs, don't we? And it is economically viable. We're like it's doing great. Like the industry is doing great. Here's another one. The global costs of extreme weather that are attributable to climate change. Extreme weather events lead to significantly adverse societal costs. Extreme event attribution, a methodology that examines how anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions had changed the occurrence of specific extreme weather events, allows us to quantify the climate change-induced component of these costs. We collect data from all available EEA studies, combine these with data on the socioeconomic costs of these events, and extrapolate from missing data to arrive at an estimate of the global costs of extreme weather attributable to climate change in the last 20 years. We find that $143 billion per year of the costs of extreme events is attributable to climate change. The majority, 63% of this, is due to human loss of life. Our results suggest that the frequently cited estimates of the economic costs of climate change arrived at by using the integrated assessment models may be substantially underestimated. The $143 billion per year that we're paying.
So this paper is criticizing other papers.
They're saying that another paper underestimated the costs.
Yes, underestimated. So they're getting it wrong. See, here's the thing. They're criticizing each other. So we don't know who to believe in this in these social sciences that are coming out here.
This is published in Nature Communications. This isn't a social science. This is climatology.
Well, anytime you estimate economic impacts, you're into a social science. So it's definitely not. You can't set up an experiment and test what they've said. So anytime you get out of there, you're out of the realm of actual quantifiable natural science.
Wait, do you think that they're not doing quantifiable data and analyzing facts about the world?
No, because what ends up happening is that the variables become too great and things become too complicated. And so in these social sciences, you can make estimates, but you're dealing with too many variables to nail anything down.
It sounds like you're saying that it's too complicated for you to understand. Therefore, the climate scientists certainly don't understand it.
No, not at all. It just has to do with the nature of social science. It's the reason why it's called social science and not natural science.
This isn't a social science. This is climate science. And economics, perhaps, if you want to
economics, which is a social science. Anytime you talk about an economic impact,
why don't we look? Who are these
you're
people?
into social science. What's that?
So, but you wouldn't say climate science is a social science, would you? Would you?
No. Climate science isn't a social science, but it's a science in which there's too many variables involved for people to make an experiment and test it. You can't test any of these theories.
Wait,
we don't have 1,000
hold on.
Earths
By
to
the way,
test.
you absolutely can do experimental climate science. You absolutely can, because you can model things in a laboratory. Like I don't know what this claim is that it's not an experimental science, but like you absolutely can model things in a laboratory, like build experiments and so on.
Which are you're trying to say are an analog to the actual environment, but you can absolutely
Well, no, you can literally just take like the actual environment and then just put it in a box and test it, right? Like the actual air, you can put it in a box and test it.
But you'd have to be able to test the whole entire atmosphere as a whole, as a complex system.
We know what the atmosphere is made out of.
But you'd be using an analog. Even if you were to use the same concentration of atmosphere into a box and then shoot something into it, you're absolutely not creating an Earth atmosphere with all.
Hey, do you want to read another one? This one from the UN, which I'm sure you don't trust. But
no, not the UN. That organization's totally corrupt.
But the Manhattan Institute definitely reliable.
Well, look, you're going to go and say, I mean, you can, if we're just, you go in here and say, this guy's not reliable, that guy's not reliable.
That's what you've been doing. You've just been shitting on every single scientific source and like credible institution that I've sent you, and you brought me the Manhattan Institute.
So, okay, and your problem with that is they're conservative. You said, well, I don't believe them. Okay.
No, my problem with them is they're not using a scientific analysis, and I've given you scientific analyses. And you're just saying, but we can't trust that. That's social science.
No, because politicians have gotten into the sciences. They fund it. They decide what gets researched. You do what you're told, or you lose your grants and you don't keep your papers.
Spoken like somebody who has never been involved in science in their entire life.
So you can go in here and say this. I mean, I've seen them. It's.
Have you ever been involved in a grant granting process?
No.
Okay, have you ever been involved in writing a grant for a scientific project?
No.
So on what grounds do you have to say anything about the way that grant granting
because
works?
Because the grants are coming from government sources. I mean, look at Harvard and Columbia. I mean, they start losing their federal money and it's the end of the world for them.
So, to be clear, not all grants are federal sources or government sources to begin with. Are you aware of that?
Oh, okay, and then at that point, they're going to be what, nonpartisan sources? Are there people that simply randomly hand out money without asking what it's being done for? No, you got to write a grant and beg them for money. You got to write it. They're going to look at it and say, does this meet what we're interested in researching? You're doing what they want. You got to bend a knee.
So is your claim then that, well, you just can't trust the climate scientists because they have to pay for things?
No. My claim is this: the Earth's going to cool here in the next 5 years.
Based on what data? Sorry, based on what data?
Based on the fact that if it's random, then some other random occurrences come in here. 5 years from now, it's gonna be cold.
Based on I'm hearing a lot of ifs. I'm hearing a lot of ifs. Based on what data?
Just that the climate's random. That it's
sorry. Based on what data do you have that the climate is random?
The fact that if we look back, the temperatures change.
Hold on. Let's do this. Let's see how random it is.
Go back 100 million years and tell me what the highest temperature was and the lowest temperature.
No, we're don't worry. We're gonna look at data.
Let's do that. Let's do the highest temperature and the lowest temperature last 100 million.
Stop talking.
Years.
I'm actually.
Okay.
So I don't think we have 100 million years, but we do have 800,000 years. We have ice cores from 800,000 years ago. Here's an ice core. Here's ice core information.
What was the global temperature when the dinosaurs?
Hold on, I'm pulling this up. We just don't have accurate measures. I mean, like we can estimate it for like on the million year scale, but we just don't have accurate measures for those kinds of things. Here is the quote unquote random environment. This looks so random to me. Definitely random.
So absolutely. So looking at that,
absolutely
and if I were just
random.
guessing it was random, if I were just looking at this chart and guessing it's random, the temperatures are going to drop soon based on.
Wait, sorry. The correlation between the CO2 and the temperature is random.
What I'm saying, I'm not even talking about the correlation between the two. I'm just saying that the temperatures have gone between a range, And so if you're just if you hold everything else and you just say the temperature's gone up, the temperature's gone down, then in the future the temperature's going to go down. It's a fair thing.
So there's no data, right? Like it's just kind of vibes.
No, there's data. There's data.
Sorry, what's the data that you have then? Definitely random though, right? There's definitely no correlation between carbon dioxide and temperature.
The temperature should spike. If your theory is correct, our temperature should skyrocket.
Hey, what, should we take a look?
Well, we're running. You can run.
Should we take a look? Should we take a look at the temperature over time?
So you go right.
Hold on,
ahead.
no, we're pulling it up. Don't worry, we're pulling it up. So you said, according to your theory, temperatures should spike.
No. You said carbon dioxide levels have spiked. According to your theory, temperature should spike.
Yep. Oh no! What is that? Oh no! It's a spike.
And when the temperatures fall,
when are the temperatures going to fall?
Global warming industry. What's that?
When are the temperatures going to fall?
No.
Sorry. Is this a spike? Would you say that this is a spike?
So that's all. I mean, it's made a prediction that I'm not worried.
I'm made an accurate prediction.
You need to chill out.
Wait, so is your prediction based on any data? Is it based on any data at all?
Sure, that data set you just showed over the last 800,000 years, the temperatures have risen and fallen. And we're
hold on, just to be clear. So let's look at this plot. So just looking at this plot, in this plot we've seen a temperature spike by what? We can say like almost 1.5. I mean, this is a little bit old, but about 1.5 degrees Celsius in the last 140 years. That sounds about right, right?
It's so silly to me. I think about the temperatures in the desert at 100 degrees, and I think 100. So
1.5 degrees Celsius in the last 140 years, right? So now let's go back and look at those 800,000 year records, right? Sure. Let's take a look at those. That's just Antarctica. We want the global average. That's just, oh no, it has to be Antarctica because that's how we get the data. We get it from the Antarctic sheets. Come on, open up. Okay, I'll just open the image in a new tab. So here's our other chart, right? We don't have to worry about the CO2 because we're just looking at the temperature here. So importantly, if we just pick one of these spikes at random, right? One of these spikes at random, how long does it take? Well, it might look like it's really, really fast, but if we look at, say, this one, actually, why don't we just go pull up? We could in principle go pull up data, but if we look at any one of these, even a single pixel is going to be 1,000 years, right? Because this is 200,000 years between, or 100,000 years between each tick. So even this spike here, this highest spike in the middle, is he still here? Yeah, even the highest spike in the middle took place over 1,000 years, probably more.
Oh, so okay, so maybe your data there shows.
So the spike that we're seeing is not the same kind of spike. It's much faster. And the actual change in temperature isn't random. It's actually directly correlated with the CO2 in the atmosphere. And beyond that, we can actually prove causality. We can prove a causal relationship between an increase in the CO2 in the atmosphere and an increase in the mean surface temperature. Are you familiar with that?
So let's stop here because I can't go too much longer. I'll just leave you with this one thing here. What's the maximum global temperature rise due to man-made, according to your theory?
It's maximum. So predicted or current?
You predicted, yeah. According to the climate scientists, what the absolute maximum temperature of the Earth's going to rise if we do nothing.
So it just depends on the situation. Oh, if we do nothing, like
what's the maximum temperature rise?
I think I've seen like 5 degrees in the next 100 years.
5 degrees. Now, if you
5 degrees Celsius.
Okay, now, if you stop for a second, you look back over your entire life, everywhere you've lived, and said the temperature's 5 degrees hotter, it has no
5
impact
degrees Celsius,
on anything.
by the way. That's 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Do you think?
Okay, 9 degrees.
Hold
9
on. Do you actually
hotter.
think?
So it's gone from 99 to
Hold on. Do you actually think that that's true?
What's that?
Do you actually think that that's true? That if the Earth warms by 5 degrees Celsius on average, then nothing will happen?
what I'm saying is that a 9-degree impact isn't that serious. Even in your worst estimates that are wrong.
Wait, have you
it's
thought
not
about
that
this
big
for
of a
more
deal.
than like?
We'll be just fine. Human
have you
beings are
thought-
smart. They're
Wait,
clever.
have you thought about this for half a second?
Even under your worst case scenario.
So have you thought about this for like half a second?
Well, what I know is they've made predictions in the past. The climate predictions have always been wrong.
By the way,
they're going to be wrong in the future.
By the way, so the last time the temperature, so if we look back like 150,000 years, the temperature the temperature rose by 3 degrees. Do you know what happened to the sea level?
So look, in 5 years, I'll find
Wait, do you want to answer the question? Do you want to answer the question?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
The sea level rose by 100 meters.
So, look, this is what I'm saying. The Chinese have built 2 coal-fired power plants every day. They put out twice as much carbon
Wait, I don't
dioxide
actually
as the
think
United
that's true.
States.
You know that China produces more
Every
green
week.
energy than the U.S. does.
No, they put out way more carbon dioxide. That's way more than the United States.
They
China
put
and
out
India, I
less
think, both
carbon
produce
dioxide. They put out less carbon dioxide per person than the U.S. does by a huge margin.
But they put out way more. Well, I don't know.
No. But by a huge margin, they put out way less. They put out way less. Like, do you like
if their populations
So-
were that? I'll have to
so-
get going here, Dr. Blitz. You
so-
have a tremendous day.
All right, take care, bud.
Yep.
So, just for people who are interested, we can just go look at the emissions per capita for China. Where in the chart? Yeah, so they emit, as of 2023, they emit 9.24 tons of CO2 per capita. The United States emits 13.83 tons of CO2 per capita per year. So Americans emit like 40% more CO2 than Chinese citizens do. In fact, India is actually doing spectacularly well. India produces 2 tons per year. American citizens put out 6 times more CO2 than India does. By the way, hair down. Why does temperature rise before CO2 does in the ice core data? Right, okay, this is a really good question. So up until recently, it's always been the case that temperature rise is correlated with, so when the temperature rises, then the CO2 in the atmosphere increases. That's been the case for every single temperature increase in the past 800,000 years. However, this time we can actually track it, and CO2 is leading temperature rise, and that's the problem. That's how we know that we're causing it this time.
Hey there, sir. How's it going?
Hey, Mr. White, how's it going?
You know, it's going pretty good. Just listening to you a little bit. I wanted to ask, what did the Tonga produce in 2022? Does anyone have
Are you
those
talking about
numbers?
the Tonga eruption?
That's pretty much it. I'm not talking about a Tonga island or anything.
Let's go check.
Yeah,
By the way, do you think that human? Sorry, please, hold on.
Big.
Do you think that that humans cause climate change?
You know, we're pretty insignificant in the timetable of things as far as what we're discovering, even in the deepest trenches.
Sorry,
we're
that was just a
discovering
yes or
how
no
much
question,
the
right? That was
smokers
just a yes or no
produce.
question.
Can I finish, please?
Well, yeah, but you're not
we're
answering the question, so
producing
please answer.
more-
Please answer the question.
Okay. What is?
Yeah, the question is do you think that humans are causing climate change?
No.
Okay,
I don't.
That's all I wanted to know. Great. So, do you want to? We can talk about Tonga if you want.
Yeah, let's talk about that one.
Yeah.
It was a
Okay.
pretty
Okay.
good one.
So how many tons of CO2 do you think Tonga produced? The Tonga eruption.
It was in the miles. They put it as miles.
We measure CO2 emissions in tons. So
They actually
do you
had the
have a-
kilometers or something like that.
those are not the same. Those are not the same units.
Okay.
So do you have a guess?
I'm going to say, how about 50 million?
All right, let's see if we can find it. So according to All right, here we go. I think I found something that'll have a nice number for it. So,
Well, no, because people are going to scrutinize it. They're
sorry?
going to go, here's what they're going to do. They're going to say, well, God, if it had that
Okay,
much,
so,
then...
So hold on. I'm going to tell you the number. So
Okay, go for it.
According to
Go
a
for it.
volcanologist at Michigan Tech, they estimated that the eruption emitted on the order of 2 to 5 million metric tons of CO2.
Okay.
That's a lot, right?
Okay, I was way off, but...
2 to 5 million tons. Now,
that's a lot.
how much CO2 emissions do you think humans emit on a yearly basis?
Oh, like worldwide, right?
Yeah, worldwide.
Okay, worldwide. Okay, I'm gonna say 1.1
1.1 what?
million metric tons.
Oh, yeah. So annual CO2 emissions in 2022 by humans was 36.8 billion metric tons, with a B.
I find that hard to believe. I mean, whose numbers are coming out with that?
The International Energy Agency.
That is a huge
and literally,
number, man.
literally everybody. Like I can just hold on. CO2 emissions.
You can't
per
just say
year.
literally everybody. Come on, let's
Yeah,
just go for your top two.
Okay. Our World in Data, the World Economic Forum. You probably hate that. Institute for European Environmental Policy, Population Education, Carbon Brief, Wikipedia, the BBC.
No Wikipedia.
So climate.gov, European Parliament, climate change NASA. So this is NASA. Like this is not a contested number.
In opposition.
Who's
like saying
nobody disagrees with this. This is just accepted fact.
Okay, cool.
Everybody agrees that it's like 30 in 2022. It's on the order of 30 to 40 billion metric tons.
And so the Tonga, they're saying, is only 2.1 million?
Somewhere between 2 and 5 million metric tons. Yeah.
You sure this is the same? I mean, this eruption was huge.
Yeah. Volcanoes don't really have a significant effect.
I mean, it was hard to measure because, I mean, it sits like a mile and a half down. So, at least...
in fact, you know what's really funny? So the CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere are steadily increasing, right? This is something that we can go look at. I can just pull up a chart really quick.
And it has nothing to do with our wobble or anything like that, or the solar maximum?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. In fact, it's like super reliable. Here, let me show you.
Because we are in a solar maximum right now.
We are, yeah. I don't know, but let me show you.
At our peak right now. We are at our peak.
Let me show you a nice, lovely plot.
Okay, like it. I like it.
This is the monthly average carbon dioxide concentration. So it's just increasing, right? Like it's pretty obviously increasing. It changes once a year because it basically changes with the seasons. But it's clearly
fluctuating.
Right?
So wouldn't it be safe to say that
this is fluctuating? This is fluctuating? This is fluctuating. It's just going up. What?
It's going up, but I think it's in its own, because I mean, either we have it on the south or the north as far as the ice. And the last one, the recording, we had it here in the north.
Wait, sorry, is this going up or is this fluctuating?
Well, I mean, with that graph, yeah, I mean, it's just going up. I mean, but you have I mean, it's all the in between, each increment is what.
So do you know why there's that sawtooth pattern? Because it actually explains it on this webpage. It says, the sawtooth pattern demonstrates the fluctuation of atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide over seasonal cycles, driven largely by the terrestrial biosphere. Now, what that's saying is that because most of the land on the Earth is in the northern hemisphere, most of the trees and most of the plants have a seasonal cycle, and so in particular, you will have because plants and animals and so on behave differently in the summer versus in the winter, and most of those things are in the northern hemisphere as opposed to the southern hemisphere. You're going to have seasonal variations. So, for example, when the trees and the plants are growing, like in the spring and summer, you're going to have less CO2 because while they're growing, they're pulling CO2 out of the atmosphere. And then in the fall and winter, when they're dying, you have the CO2 goes back up.
Right.
But that's just a seasonal thing. It doesn't affect the overall effect. Now, interestingly enough, it turns out that if you look at if you look closely, like it's hard to tell from that graph, because from that graph it's like it's not averaging per year, so you kind of get lost in the actual bumps over the course of a year. But the Tonga eruption, which took place in 2022, was actually followed by the lowest increase in CO2 concentration in the atmosphere since 2017. So CO2 concentration in the atmosphere increased by less than any other year in the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it still grew, but it grew by less than any other year. So how could it have been Tonga if Tonga was putting out so much CO2 into the atmosphere?
Well, I mean, it's not just Tonga. I mean, Tonga just was, you know, an event.
Basically, volcanoes basically have no effect on CO2 emissions.
Right?
Sorry?
Throughout the seabed floor, you have stackers or smokers, they call them. That
those are basically those are essentially 0%. Those are essentially 0% of the contribution of CO2
You can't
emissions.
say that. That is kind of reckless. They're not 0%.
I said basically 0%. It's small. It's small compared to US compared to not American. Sorry. It's small compared to human climate change.
I like the fact that
CO2.
That was good.
So to be clear, you agree that Tonga has nothing to do with CO2 in the atmosphere, right? Like it has basically no effect.
It's going to have an effect for the time that it happened.
It didn't.
It had no effect to whatever was there.
In fact, the CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere growed more slowly after the Tonga eruption than they did in the years before and in the years after.
Wow. That is just so ass backwards. I mean, I don't.
It turns out humans have a way bigger impact than even eruptions.
You know, you're going to have a very big fluctuation.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, you're wrong. So here, let me show you another chart. Here's the chart
I don't mind being wrong. I just think that, you know, you're given just. Okay,
this is the CO2 chart. This is the chart that tells you how much the CO2 in the atmosphere increases every year. So it's increased every single year since 1959 when this chart started. But if you go and you look where 2022 is, so 2022, oops, did not mean to do that. One sec. I have to put myself back in the middle. 2022 would be right here. You can see it, right?
Okay.
There's 2020, there's 2021, there's 2022. Now, notice how it's lower than all of the years surrounding it. And that's the year that Tonga erupted. So Tonga couldn't have had any significant effect.
I mean, what if it takes that long for the data to collect itself and look at the two lines, look at 24 and 25?
Well, there's
23 and 24.
Yeah. So wait, what do you mean? This is the annual global increase of CO2. So they measure it at the end of the year.
Right, but
they measure it at the end of the year.
Something more dense than that. As far
what do
as
you mean more dense?
Dude, our atmosphere is like what, 7 layers deep, even more than that.
The atmosphere mixes pretty quickly, but the point is that
okay.
Do you know why it was lower in 2022?
Yeah, because I think the Tonga takes it, and then it because it was underwater. So you have you know a more of a slow yield type of situation, right? I mean, it's gonna.
I'll give you another guess.
I think that's
why
we have
do you
astronomical numbers now.
I'll give you another guess. Why do you think it decreased?
It decreased maybe because of COVID. I mean, COVID was at
that's exactly the reason.
Form.
Actually,
everyone's got a mask on.
That's exactly the reason it decreased. So it was because of human behavior that it decreased. It had nothing to do with Tonga.
But I'm saying that those lines to the right of that was way whacked. I mean,
that's because we reopened.
Straight up.
That's because we reopened, and everybody had stuff to do.
Okay. Well, it doesn't have those lines, you know, back in the chart, not straight up. I mean, all the way to the top. Those put that chart back up. That was interesting. That was pretty cool. I mean, that's the exact kind of readout. Is like, hey, what's going on this year? What's going on that year? What website is that?
Let me pull it up. I just had it. Where did it go?
But I'd be willing to bet that is why we see the increase, not just opening up for business, because you know what, we're not all the way open up. I mean, we kind of we're living off of Chinese goods.
Nobody's closed anymore.
Horrible.
Like it's just not true that nobody's closed from COVID anymore. Right? Some companies shut down, absolutely. But
okay, yeah, look at that. Nowhere else in that chart do we get those kind of numbers. I mean, that's.
Are you talking about 2024? Yeah, 2024 is 2024 is a lot. Yeah, absolutely. 2024 was horrible.
Well, I mean, no, it's more than horrible. It defaces the entire graph.
Yeah. So are you asking why was there such high emission in 2024?
Right.
That's a great question.
Thing that's making it do that.
That's a really, really good question. Why don't we we can think about that?
Yeah,
but it definitely wasn't Tonga, right? It wasn't Tonga.
Well,
right?
I don't think it's Tonga. I mean, it could be, but
no, it's not.
I mean, because Tonga was underwater, like by a long shot, its caldera also fell too. I mean, all you're left with are two little beady points of rock, and 2 miles that separate them. I mean, that's how big the caldera was that fell. And, I mean, it really could be, because it's got to go through the ocean, then it's got to pump out.
Well, it doesn't. It does just go straight into the atmosphere, right?
Right. But, I mean, look at the kind of, molecule situation that, that much being put in the ocean in pressure and heat and cooled. I mean, you've got a number of factors there. Then, it gets into our atmosphere, which our atmosphere has what? I mean, it's 7 to 10 layers deep, and we don't even know some of the layers and what they actually do.
So just to be clear, the entire atmosphere mixes relatively, it homogenizes pretty quickly.
It does. I mean, that's what gets
it homogenizes on the order of a year.
I mean, it's pretty awesome, dude. I mean, it's almost
I agree,
like it's
but that's I agree that the world is amazing, but that has nothing to do with why you think that climate change isn't the cause of, or that humans aren't the cause of climate change, right?
We're just a small factor into main scheme of things.
On what
you got to
grounds?
look at the
What do you think?
You got to look at where we're at.
Sorry, what do you think is the major factor?
I think the major factor is that we're hitting a cycle, and
what cycle? What cycle?
The cycle that everyone wants to put a story to it, or put a I'm just gonna say it's a celestial body. Okay?
What celestial body?
And the celestial body
Planet X?
4 times the size of Jupiter.
Nibiru?
Okay, so no, and I'm not even gonna say it's not Nibiru. I mean, I don't even I mean, maybe that's what someone called it.
Sorry, what celestial body?
It's a celestial body that's in the Oort cloud right now.
And what's the evidence
coming
for this?
up to the Oort cloud.
What's the evidence for this?
Well, there seems to be a lot happening in the Oort cloud.
And what's the evidence that any of this has anything to do with the Earth's increasing temperature?
Well, so when the Earth got hit by the moon, I'm just going to say that for a lack of better.
The Earth never got hit by the moon.
It tilted us, to a 23-degree.
The Earth never got hit by the moon.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that for whether you believe that or not, you can't disprove.
No, it never happened.
You can't disprove that.
Well,
can
yeah,
you?
we can, but we can by looking at the moon and seeing that it's not destroyed.
Right, but it's got a ton of craters, so we got to kind of look at that too.
Yeah, the moon got hit by asteroids. Bag. Absolutely.
Had it been a punching bag or not?
Yeah, by asteroids, not by the Earth.
Right. I think the moon's there by design.
What does that have to do with climate change?
Okay, so I'm getting there.
Okay.
So if whatever hit us and put us on a tilted axis, it's that axis, that precessional axis, and the time that it takes to move us into a certain angle, so to speak. When we're off kilter, I think in the past, without the moon, that's when things.
Sorry. What do you mean without the moon? When did Earth not have the moon?
Well, there's an Earth before the moon, and there's an Earth after the moon.
Sorry.
When did Earth
not have a moon?
I at least in my understanding, probably about 85 million years ago.
You think that the moon is only 85 million years old?
No, it's a lot older than that, but it became.
So where did the moon go 85 million years ago?
85 million years ago.
So then why do we have what are they called? Tidalites, I think that's what they're called. Why do we have records of lunar tides dating back 600 million years?
You can't date those tides 600 million
Sure you
years.
can.
Well, I mean, you can, but you don't have the variable. I mean, you got too many variables to sift through and extrapolate, a dead set target. That's
Not
what I
really.
get. I would beg to differ on
I'm
that.
sorry.
because-
They're called rhythmites, not tidalites. I'm stupid.
Well, that's that. Okay, so if
Do you
that's
know what a
our date,
rhythmite is? Do you know what a rhythmite is?
no, that's a great word for the day, a rhythmite. So tell me what is it?
So rhythmites are any type of layer of sediment or sedimentary rock that are
Okay.
laid down in a periodic way. Now,
Okay.
there are things called tidal rhythmites,
Mhm.
where essentially you can see layers that are laid down recording the tidal cycles.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
for
I get
example,
that.
there are different types of tides that come in different cycles, right? And so you can actually figure out how far away the moon was, or that the moon existed at all, by looking at these tidal rhythmites. There are things called neap tides and spring tides, semidiurnal and diurnal tides, and so on and so forth. And the point is we can establish that these tidal rhythmites, they go all the way back hundreds of millions of years.
Okay,
Right.
that's
I think
okay.
the
Cool.
earliest we have is 620 million years. We just don't have any such
Wow.
rhythmites at
You-
all before
you know
that.
What? That is freaking awesome that you're telling me this, because I didn't realize that we had the ability to track back that far. With a certain accuracy that is all revealing, in a way, because this is actually going to substantiate my story even more.
How?
Because the fact of the matter is that we can both agree that the moon is a serious influence on our planet, right?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So with that being said, we can understand that the moon has such a serious impact that we can look how things were caused because of the moon, whether it be
Yeah,
a
but the
tidal
thing is,
surge or all these things that
the
happen
lovely thing is that
naturally.
we can check that the moon's been here for the entire time the Earth's been here.
I'm going to disagree with that highly. I
But
don't think
that's
so.
really easy to check. It turns out the moon is made from the same stuff as the Earth. The moon actually is
Okay.
a chunk of the Earth. The moon used to be part of the Earth.
Well, right. We could probably
And
go
it-
to Mars and
and it got-
Venus
it
and
got
all that
knocked
thing
off.
and
It got knocked-
extrapolate the same type of
The moon,
data.
no. We have Mars rocks, and they are very,
Right, if
very.
you're talking rocks, dude, we can do that anywhere.
So hold on, you cut me
You
off.
have the process of
You
a
cut me
rock
off.
is still the same.
So you have Mars rocks, and Mars rocks, you can tell just by analyzing what they're made out of that they're not from Earth. But if you give me a Mars rock or if you give me an Earth rock and a lunar and like a moon rock, they're basically identical. And that's because the moon came from the Earth. The moon used to be part of the Earth. It got knocked off when a smaller planet crashed into the Earth, like right after the
I
Earth
don't
formed.
think the moon has the crystalline that basalt and the rose
The moon
quartz.
the moon has basically the exact same isotopic ratios as the Earth does.
Well, then that could be registered by collecting moon data, right?
Yeah, and we've tested this. You can we have moon rocks. You can check their isotopic data, compare it with Earth's isotopic data, and you get basically the exact same thing. Now it's a
See,
teensy
that
tiny
just-
bit slightly
okay,
different,
go
but
ahead.
it's teensy tiny bit slightly different, but it's far closer between the Earth and the moon compared with the Earth and any other celestial body in the solar system.
Right. No, I agree with that. Yes,
So I mean, the moon
agree.
is made of Earth, right?
We just don't have enough data. I mean, if
We
if my
have
theory,
we have the data for that.
if I'm
we have
saying the
we
moon
have the
hit
data.
us, well, then there's going to be debris left from the moon.
The moon didn't hit us. A
But if
smallish
it
planet
did,
hit us
I'm
and created the
just
moon.
saying my claim, you could easily do the same thing and say that's where we found our moon, data.
So hold on. Let me let's walk through this. Suppose the moon hit us. Why is there still a moon?
Because when there can you at least agree with me that there was a planet between Mars and Earth at one point?
Are we talking about Theia?
Or developing one? Or
Are we talking
developing
about Theia? Yeah, 4.5 billion years ago,
Okay,
a protoplanet
so-
called Theia smashed into the Earth. Yeah,
Then that
And that
is
created
where
the
our
moon.
moon is. Huh?
yeah. Well, so that isn't our moon, but basically it knocked some part of the Earth off the moon, and then the rest of it just kind of joined with the Earth.
Yeah, so you gotta say cores were formed at that point. We still don't know enough.
Yeah, and that was
about
by the way, that was
cores.
4.5 billion years ago.
Well, time is we can only go. I think you have the latest. I mean, 600 million years. That's a pretty
four
good.
and a half billion is like we can date.
The Earth
we
before
know when
checks
the
and
last
balances.
we know the last time that the moon was molten. The moon was like basically liquid rock when it was first formed because it was knocked off in a collision, and it was liquid rock more than 4.5 billion years ago.
Yeah, I see the characteristics that we have with the moon versus our own, understanding of what a moon should do or its relevance to its planet. I mean, we see Europa and Jupiter's moons do different things than our moon does, and basically our moon does nothing but turn one way. And
What do you mean? Like all moons do is orbit their host planet. That's what they do.
Oh, they're doing a lot more than that. Okay,
Nope,
so
that's all they do. That's what a moon is. It's a thing that orbits its host planet.
Not if it affects the water the way it does and affects other things. It's doing a lot more.
So
than
the
that.
moon is just orbiting. Now the Earth, because of the moon, has things happen to it, like tides.
Okay. So now you're getting into my area. So those tides.
Wait, your area? Are you a scientist?
The wear and tear that those tides, like you said. Those,
Are you a scientist?
What was it? The meters that the sedimentary stuff called?
Rhythmites. They're called tidal rhythmites.
Thank you. So what you were saying, those were, we can go back and say just based on the layers situation that they produce, that we're able to extrapolate and say how old it is. So we don't account for. Are there any variables that might hinder that process?
Enter which process?
That process of sedimentary age.
I'm sure there are. Why don't you go get a degree in geology and study them?
I'm just in a bachelor's in science right now, so
what area of science, if you don't mind me asking?
Cybersecurity.
Oh, well, why don't you switch to geology so you can figure out what the variables are?
Yeah, no. What I'm trying to figure out is that you're right. I mean, there's a relationship between the moon and the Earth, and I mean, I don't think we understand it enough. Tell you the truth.
Have you taken any classes on geology or on hydrology or on astrophysics?
I've just got limited information or education regarding that. But
hold on. So just to be super clear, you know stuff about cybersecurity, right?
A little bit.
I'm not. So you're getting your degree in it,
all
right?
the way yet. So
if I just came and said, well, actually, encrypted data causes your files to become corrupted, and I just don't think we know enough about data encryption because there's too many variables. I just think that we just don't know enough about data encryption. I think that we need to stop encrypting our data.
I get you. I get you on that. Okay, that was a good analogy, by the way. That was good. I like that. Good metaphor. But you can agree though that there are things that are still just very much up in the air, and us trying to find an answer based on a compilation of many answers is kind of reckless, and to say that we're just not there yet in our understanding of something is a lot safer,
right?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We're just not there. We really should not be using these computers. They could be giving us their computer viruses. It's just too dangerous. We should just go back to using typewriters.
I mean, we're definitely in the age of information. I mean, it's just
I don't know. I think it's too dangerous. I just don't think we know enough.
Served us.
I don't think we know enough. I think that we need to. I think we're making too many
We
assumptions
don't.
about. I mean,
don't
look,
know enough.
look. Are you telling me that I could get sick from my computer virus? I don't know. I just don't think we know enough. I think we need to shut off all the computers and go back to typewriters.
we still move forward. We still get up every day. All right. We don't let what our theories and our peer-reviewed answers give us. We have to kind of go by our own gut feeling. Am I right?
Hold on, hold on. No, that's like the most stupid thing that you could do. If you have two options for how to make an informed decision, and one option is peer-reviewed data-based analysis, and the other option is your gut feeling, it would be like the most stupid thing to do to not go with the peer-reviewed data-based analysis.
You got to put them both together.
No, you don't. You really don't have to rely on your guts. Not when we have data. You don't have to.
Yeah, but wouldn't you agree
In fact,
that
you shouldn't?
Up until like when we thought that there was no mass in light, and we find
mass
that
doesn't have light.
Wrong.
Light doesn't have mass. No, that's right.
Photons,
light doesn't have mass.
There are photons.
Photons don't have mass. Photons don't have mass.
It's not a mass that we understand.
No, they don't have any mass. They don't have any mass. Photons don't have any mass.
It does have mass.
No, they don't.
Because it
photons
bends
have no mass
for a reason. It
no,
bends
no.
for a reason.
It bends because space-time bends, not because they have mass.
And gravity is what bends it. Is it not?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to have mass in order to have its path bent. Photons don't have mass.
You can't just base that on a solar wind or kind of wavelength thing. That can you?
Photons. Okay, so look, I can forgive saying uninformed things about hydrology and about geology because those aren't my field. But I cannot forgive. Right? Those are not.
Okay.
I cannot stand by while someone lies on my photons.
It's not lying because basically,
it is lying. You are lying. You're lying right now.
Okay,
lying's a sin.
I need to frame it in it's my opinion then.
Your opinion, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one, but you don't need to tell me yours.
True. I mean,
you don't need to show me yours. Is that how the analogy? How does it?
But you can't. I mean, if you can disprove things that I say, then
yes, yes, we can disprove that photons have mass. Yes, we can. Want me to show you some data?
You said that they didn't have mass.
Sorry, I misspoke. We can disprove the fact that, or your opinion that photons have mass.
Yes, let's just disprove that.
Okay.
Because I think we just found out that in the CERN, I didn't read the entire story, sorry, but they did talk about how the what do they call that? It's quantum. Quantum.
Sir, they've hit the second tower. America's under attack. That's what I'm feeling right now. You know how George Bush felt when the second tower was hit? That's how I feel.
Quantum.
You are my second tower.
I know.
So, by the way, currently the upper limit on the mass of a photon. So we take data and we put bounds on things. The upper limit on a mass of a photon is 1 billion trillion times less mass than a proton.
Okay.
And every single theory that we have that relies or that functions with electromagnetism. Think of like everything in your computer, in fact. All of that relies on a photon having zero mass. If it didn't have zero mass, none of that would work.
Yeah, see, I have no answer. Even if I did, I mean that answer has everything to do with space and time and the bend of space and time throughout, going through the universe. And I just, it seems that, it takes energy to bend something, and that energy has to attach itself to something, right?
Photons have momentum, but they don't have mass.
And we can completely confirm that 100%.
Basically as confirmed as like anything is in physics.
What does that mean?
I mean, like, I don't know, can we completely confirm that gravity is real? I guess, insofar as like all of the data points that way, in the same way that all of the data points the way of photons don't have mass. There's not a single piece of data that suggests photons do have mass. Let's put it that way.
I just see that when it's traveling, light takes. I mean, if it didn't have some kind of mass, I just don't see how it can make the journey that it makes.
Not everything needs. Why does something need mass in order to move?
Well, we need something to hold the. I mean, you got to use glue to hold the. The
mass isn't
the
glue.
Apparatus together.
Mass isn't glue. Mass is just like a property.
Yeah, but it's always got energy to it. No matter if
photons have energy, they just don't.
Or what?
Photons have energy, they don't have mass.
I'm not seeing the checks and balances on that theory right there. Can you help me out here?
I don't know what you mean by checks and balances.
Well, I'm just saying that you can't have one way. You can't have mass, and say it's got the properties of energy, like you said, and then say that light has no mass but still possesses the same qualities.
Yes, so some things have mass and have energy. Some things have no mass and still have energy.
I mean, yes, it's not mass as maybe we kind of know it, because the gas is
no, it's just not mass. No, gases have mass. Gases absolutely have mass.
Okay,
yeah, you
gases
can weigh
have
a gas.
mass. So what can have no mass?
Photons,
energy?
gravitons, gluons. None of those things have mass.
Or even fermions, right?
No, fermions have mass. All fermions have mass.
Okay, fermions. So you're saying that
photons, gluons, and gravitons don't have mass.
Graviton. And what about
although
neutrinos?
Gravitons are hypothetical.
Neutrinos have mass?
Neutrinos have mass.
They do. So that's kind of what I look at it. If those things, if the gravitons, I mean, those things are speeding pretty fast, right?
They're all move. Anything that doesn't have mass moves at the speed of light.
Okay, that's interesting. So those are the three that we've kind of been able to measure, or at least find. And
gravitons are hypothetical. We have never measured them, but we know that they should exist. And if they do exist, they don't have mass. Gluons and photons, though, we do know exist. We've measured them. They definitely don't have mass.
Okay, so tell me this then. How can you, like, if you were to split a photon up and then shoot one side down 7 miles and one way and 7 miles the other way, shoot the other side down, and then try to do something with its environment on one side, the other side's going to react to it. How do you explain that?
You're asking about quantum mechanics now. You're asking about entanglement, I think.
Yes.
That's a whole story, and it has nothing to do with the topic.
I know. Let's get back to the topic. I mean, it's just,
unfortunately we cannot, because I have to end the live.
All right. Well, I just think you should at least have an open mind about things sometimes.
So I would agree.
Do.
Just make sure it's not so open that your brain falls out.
No, I can't. I've already lost too much of that. No,
all right.
I love this stuff.
Mr. White, thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one. All right.
Rahul Pounderick W climate change debate. Dr. Blitz, the gift that keeps giving. Thank you for the 10 Canadian dollary dinos. I appreciate you dramatically. Now, for everybody who's been watching, you guys are the best. Make sure to like the live if you're watching on TikTok. Follow along if you're watching on TikTok. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Ring the bell. You know, there's all these things that you can do to make sure that you see more of this, and will encourage me to do it more. However, it is that time. It's closing time. Now, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I will see you guys tomorrow. I don't know what topic we're gonna do. We might not do climate change. We probably don't want to beat this dead horse, but we'll see. All right, everybody, have a good night, and I will see you tomorrow. Actually, I will be late tomorrow because I have a dinner, but there might be a live tomorrow. If not, then on Saturday. Take care.